Okay,
Well, up. We're
that's
good.
why it was started to get.
Let's
better.
bring this meeting to order.
It was over to get over.
We'll begin with a moment of silence and the pledge. Please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next, we'll have public comments. The commission requests that comments be limited to a maximum of 5 minutes. If you have any comments, please step to the podium. Yes, Representative.
How are you doing, Mr. Mayor, City Council members? My name's Alan Roethlisberger, State Representative, 65th District. I just want to mention tonight the progress we're making on getting Manhattan Area Technical College with a satellite campus here. Things are forming up very nicely on it. Within a month or so, we should be able to present the financing to the governor if all goes well. Nice thing is we're not asking for a building, so that should help us dramatically. And we're only asking for two professions to be taught here, welding being one of them. So we're working on that, so we make sure it gets in place in the budget, because on a 2-year budget cycle, if you don't do it now, it's not going to get done ever. Okay, so this is why we're getting this, so we can get a meeting set up with the governor once we have the cost factors that they're looking at, and then, of course, with the regents, so that they're aware of what's going on, so we can work it that way. Yeah, thank you very much.
Great job, Alan. Thank you. Thank you.
I'm Larry Johnson with Cornerstone Realty and Johnson Landscaping, 2124 Rucker Road in Junction. I'm here to ask the commission to reconsider the ordinance for the widths for driveways in Junction City. I have a couple of homes right now that we're building, and both of them are going to have 3-car garages, and the driveways will be 36 feet if you'll allow it. Manhattan recently adopted a new ordinance that allows 36-foot widths in their community, and I was hoping that maybe we could get ours revised to that, because out of the we've built about 19 homes in the past 4 years, and 6 of them have had 36-foot driveways with 3-car garages. So it's something that a lot of people want to see, and I think it's something the community needs.
What is it now?
The 30 feet is the
32.
36 is the maximum.
30 feet's the maximum right now.
30.
No, 30.
30 is
Excuse
the
me.
max.
Yes, it is 30.
Yeah, and we've done these other ones in the past 4 years, like I said, and there was never a problem. And then on the last one we did, it came up that they're enforcing a rule that was passed in '68. So I'd like to see a change in that.
So in '68, it was changed to 36?
No,
No,
it's
it's still
It
to 30.
was 30 in '68, and they finally started enforcing it back in March. Yeah, and so 46-year lapse there, but
We're on top of things.
yeah, and it's something that where we're doing it, there's no curb cuts or anything, and so it shouldn't be an issue in that respect. So
We will discuss it.
appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Lori Cook, representing Lincoln Elementary. A month or so ago, we walked our students up to Heritage Park to see the music in the park for the afternoon, for the lunchtime, and the guy had canceled. So we took our kids on an impromptu walk around the memorials in the park. And we came across a memorial that was dedicated to the city in 1928. And it's the Women's War Memorial from World War I soldiers. And it was carved by a gentleman who was 77 years old from native limestone off of Jay Hill. And it is now sits as a base with a carved memorial sign on it, what it was for. And we just want the city to know that we are going to restore that memorial back to its original 1928 picture here. I'm sorry. I have already contacted a stone sculptor that is a personal friend of mine from Great Bend by the name of Chet Kale. He graduated with me from Great Bend. We're laying down the groundwork right now. We've got the Geary County Historical Society on restoring that memorial. We would like to do it in Ron Harris's name. Ron would take our students around, and he was a great historian. And the Heritage Park means a lot to me. The fountain there was dedicated to the city. The monies for that in 1932 by Jacob Benton Callan. I happen to own Jacob Benton Callan's home that he built in 1904. I am restoring it, moved it out to our acreage 15 miles out of town, and in process of restoring it, Jim knows. So it means a lot to me, even though I am not a Junction City native. My husband is. I'm a transplant from western Kansas. But we want the city to know we're doing it. I've talked to Ed Lazier a little bit about it. We will start a memorial, monies for memorial, this summer, and the goal is to find out, if I can have some help, who owns the quarry on the corner of 18 and 77, to see if we can get some limestone donated.
Yeah, Munson's. Do the Munson's.
Does Rick own it? Okay.
Chuck and Deanna, I think.
Is it Chuck and Deanna? Okay.
I don't know for sure.
He went on this side of 77. I'm not sure about the other side.
Chuck owns on this side. Yeah, that'd be Chuck then.
Would it be Chuck?
right.
So I'll contact Chuck and Diana and see if they would be willing to donate the limestone for that memorial. Chet will come up and get that back to Great Bend where he'll carve on it. And we will be restoring that memorial with the city's approval. So.
Thank you so
Great.
much.
I appreciate the history lesson. I didn't
Oh.
realize that was there. Yeah.
Nobody did. When I talked to Mr. Lazier today, he goes, I don't even know what you're talking about. It's on the southeast corner next to a tree, and it just sits as a lonely little...
And there are several little plaques and stuff
Right.
that's out there that, Ed, get on that.
So,
Thank you.
you bet. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. Good seeing you again.
Do we need to act on this to give this?
No, when she's raised the money and is right before she's ready to, she'll have to go through Ed for design and all that. When that's all ready and the money's raised, then she'll need to come back formally to say, I'm ready to go this as a project, and I need your acceptance as a gift. And I had already explained that to Ed, so they'll be working together on that.
Great.
Thank you, Lori.
Oh, man, he's back. John Stewart, Spruce Street. I wasn't here for the last meeting, but I watched it on video, and you guys were talking about surcharges for golf course, Spin City, and things like that. And one of the things that I found interesting was John Bernstein brought out something that was really interesting. He said 60% of the people that play at Rolling Meadows are not even from the city. So I did some math. They brought in 2013 $108,000 for greens fees. 60% of that is $65,000 that was brought in from out of the city, non-residents. So that and we subsidized that golf course for $70,585,000. So basically, what we did was we gave people that don't even live in the city free greens fees. I thought that was pretty interesting when you do the math. And what I'd like to propose, and that's with $18 weekday and $25 weekend, and which averages around $21,000. But we can play with the figures and say, well, that money wasn't used for that; it was used for maintenance. But if you think about it, I think something we ought to do instead of a surcharge is raise the fees to meet the expenses for that golf course, and then discount for the city residents maybe 10 to 20%. To get them to go out and play and participate in our golf course that we are subsidizing. So let's somehow figure out maybe during the budget session where we can break even on that golf course, stop subsidizing it, and maybe since we do pay for the people that live around that golf course and who are not putting any money into it except for their greens fees, maybe we can maybe give a discount to the residents of Junction City who are paying for that golf course. Just a thought. And by the way, I brought up 3 years ago about the wireless communications. I'm glad to see finally you guys are doing something about it. Kind of was blown off about 3 years ago, but it's good. It's $100 if you get caught on Fort Riley with a cell phone while you're driving.
120 or 140, Matt.
Yeah, but one thing I'd like to get clarified tonight, if you could, I read the ordinance, and it said up to $500, and that's kind of vague, plus prison time. So I'd like to get a better clarification on that. If I get caught the first time, I'm hoping it's not more than $100 and some or something, not 500.
I thought you were talking about the prison time on your first time.
Oh, it says, and prison time. You can have both. Okay, thanks.
Can have that arranged.
You can make them work at the golf course for free.
Anybody else? Any other comments? Well, we'll close public comment. Next item will be consent agenda. Do we have any questions?
I move to approve the consent agenda as outlined.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it, 5-0. Now, next is special presentations. It'll be presentation of the Juneteenth proclamation.
I have consideration of appointment to the EDC board.
Oh, what did I miss?
Oh, it's here on the bottom.
Actually, I think maybe you have a newer agenda.
Oh, okay. Consideration of an appointment to the EDC board. Very good. Yes.
I think what might be going on is there's two agendas floating out. I think maybe Mayor Ryan has the updated one with the
That one.
proclamation, and I have one that has number 4 appointments, and so
Right.
you may want to go ahead with the
We usually
proclamation.
do
after all.
proclamations before
Just
we
do the
appointments.
proclamation
Yeah.
first to get it done.
Yeah. Sorry about that. I was.
Yeah. Yeah.
We added the proclamation when it was pointed out that we were missing it.
Yeah, 'cause I didn't even know here.
To receive this.
I don't.
Yes. Miss Tony's here.
Oh, okay. You say who?
Come up here and hang out with me.
Be there for the photo moment.
You're gonna have your picture taken.
Juneteenth, whereas President Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation on January 1, 1863, formally abolishing slavery in the United States of America, and whereas word about the signing of the Emancipation Proclamation was delayed some 2.5 years to June 19, 1865, in reaching authorities and African Americans in the South and Southwestern United States, and whereas Emancipation Day observations are held different days in different states in the South and Southwest and in other parts of the nation, and whereas June 19th has a special meaning to African Americans and is called Juneteenth, combining the words June and 19th, and has been celebrated by the African American community for over 125 years. Now, therefore, I urge all citizens to become more aware of the significance of this celebration in African American history and the heritage of our nation and city. Juneteenth will be celebrated on June 14th, 2014, in Junction City, Geary County, Kansas. In witness thereof, I, Michael L. Ryan, Mayor of the City of Junction City, have hereto set my hand and caused the Great Seal of the City of Junction City to be affixed this 3rd day of June, 2014. Thank you. Thank you for being here.
It starts at 11. Juneteenth is on June 14th. It's from 11 till 5. There's going to be entertainment, food, dance. It's like a picnic in the park, so we like everybody to come out and join in on the festivities and our Juneteenth celebration. Where? It's in Heritage Park.
Thank you, Miss Tony.
And now, we'll have a appointments. Consideration of an appointment to the EDC Board.
I got to call reference this, and would you, Cheryl, kind of just repeat what, I mean, last time we talked about this, apparently there may be some confusion about, I believe we talked about Mr. Bontrager and someone else wasn't eligible.
Initially,
And I
we
was-
thought, and I had explained that, initially we thought he wasn't eligible because it appeared as if he had on 2 terms. But now I was understanding that they had reset on the master agreement, so he is still eligible to be on there. But this would be his 2nd term, and then that would be his last term if you reappointed him. And then I gave you the names, and there was one name added that Mr. Ryan had been requested an addition because of, a gentleman had expressed interest since our last meeting. So really, it boils down to the list that was provided you by the EDC board, the name that was added by Mr. Ryan, and you always have the option then, it sounds like, because it was not, there was a reset in there. He had did a partial term and a reappointment, and now there's the next reappointment. He wouldn't have served 6 years total. 2 consecutive terms, full terms. So my only comment made to you in my memo was that you had been inquiring with staff to try to get new names and new people on this board, and that was why we were trying to encourage new people to submit their names.
And Ms. Risby she's a county appointment, so she really shouldn't be on this list, or?
Right.
Okay.
That's why that was taken.
Wasn't there also somebody else who didn't live?
Question
Banker?
was, Mr. Banker's
I
no
know
longer
he's
on the
moved,
list.
but I thought there was somebody else that.
Well, the question was that Alan Bontrager didn't
Well, he doesn't-
live in the city, but he
No.
owns a business in the
Right.
city.
Yeah, and there is no specific requirement for that, but if you go by that, there was 2 people, Mr. Bontrager and this Mr. Ted Grubb. Also doesn't even live in the county. He just works here. He works for a bank, is what I was understanding. So,
I think-
that's all policy decisions that staff doesn't make. That's your
Right.
choices.
We need to hold those residency requirements firm, because that's why we have city appointments and county appointments.
Well, and that's where it goes back to the discussion about, and I wasn't, as I explained to the EC board, I wasn't involved in these discussions to know what was being requested. I just know that when Mr. Smith left, he said, now be sure and meet the deadline for letting the EDC board, we want to renegotiate the terms of the master agreement between, you had to give by a July 1 notice, which I drafted the letter today for, saying that we want to tweak the economic development agreement, because some of those discussions keep coming back up. Are we asking for residency requirements? Are we for city appointments? We wanted to define better what the EDC board's role was, and those are the things that kept coming up. So the letter's drafted. I just have to send it out, and those are the kinds of things that we want clarified before now and year end for the 2015 agreement.
Sure.
But as for right now, it's not defined as that they have to be a city resident. Those are all issues that have been brought up, and I continue to bring them up to you because I'm just aware of them.
Well, we hold that with the MPC and other boards as
Yes.
well, so I would think we need consistency here with this. So if it's a Junction City appointment, they should be living in Junction City, my opinion.
That's the logic.
If it's Geary County, then they can live anywhere in the county, city or not.
Then they could become a county resident if they
Correct.
still eventually want to be on the board.
Right.
Submit their name for that.
I
So
just-
which ones of these, I'm sorry, Jim,
Oh, no, go ahead.
which ones of these actually live in Junction? We've got most of them down here.
The
Bontrager
only ones
does
that
not.
I'm aware that don't live in the city is Mr. Bontrager and Mr. Grubb.
Miss Benson lives in the first house I was in Junction City. 2112 Sunflower Court.
I didn't go into researching any of the candidates for you. I wasn't asked to do that. I was just pointing out things that had been discussed in previous meetings and previous discussions with individual commissioners, and I felt obligated because I was aware of those to point them out to you. That's part of my duties, is to let you know what's going on.
Jim?
The only thing I was going to say, I read all the resumes that were here. Everyone on there did a great job of representing themselves and talking well, and I'd be happy to have every one of them on the EDC board, except for we are limited on the number of folks that we can select, which is actually one. And I do want to make the statement here, there are so many organizations that are struggling to get good people, and to see this many great people come forward, I don't want them, the ones that don't get selected, to not apply again, because we need volunteers, we need people who actually will do the work. They said 90% of the work in a town is done by 10% of the people. These folks here represent those 10%, and I want to see them come back again. You know, don't take this as, I wasn't selected the first time, don't worry, I didn't get promoted the first time. So I just want to say that, make sure you continue to apply. It's going to take all of us to make this city better, and I am into this for the long haul. So I just want to get that comment out there. Thank you.
I believe there was a very good, as you've stated, very good representation of businesses and citizens throughout Junction City. I know there's a couple on here that it's a toss-up, but if I was to suggest anything, Mark Powers has several businesses, lives in the city, has proven himself an individual that is caring for his community, just as the others are. But recently, in talking to Mr. Powers, I got the feeling that he was really wanting to step forward and help in that capacity.
I think also his experience in being in other communities all the time gives him a different perspective on what's going on elsewhere too, that can kind of help us as well.
Diesel? Anything?
And Mr. Laura down at La Fiesta
Yeah.
is new to our town, but he's ran restaurants in 3 other communities. But he is new to our town, which may be either against him or it may be
From
fresh
perspective.
blood, fresh
Might be an
ideas.
asset. He certainly made his restaurant very popular.
Yeah, he did.
A lot of good candidates.
Yeah, there are a lot of good candidates.
Yeah, and each of them have their strong points and weak points also. But
I'll add this too. Mrs. Benson, she adds so much to the community. She's been here for a long time. Her and her husband, they were a family unit. They did have a business here in a very difficult spot, but they ran a great business, and you can see from the resume, they have great experience in the community also. And that's one family that I'm quite familiar with, just from running into them. Would do a great job also.
I'd like to nominate Mark Powers. Quit messing around here.
Yeah,
Make a motion.
I'll second.
We have a nomination and a second, Mark Powers. Are there any other nominations?
yeah, I'm mulling out loud.
You're molding
Yeah,
out
I'm,
loud?
I'm fine. I don't have any.
MUL.
I don't have any strong objections to anybody that's on here. My debate is with myself sometimes is, do we try to get someone that never been on anything before and get them involved and I don't know the answer to that. I would probably be a little more confident if I knew a little more about the to people, but I'm done rambling. 'Cause it's not going to help me
Well, there are
digest
many,
anymore.
many boards and organizations that are always looking for people as well, even not necessarily associated with the city.
Yeah, the Housing Authority needs someone right now.
Right. So that might be a thought for some of these other candidates.
Will there be any other nominations?
I'd like to see Alan stay in there, because Alan, I don't know how many terms he's done, but, you know, it sounds like from reading here, he did 1 year filling in a term, and then this would actually be, you're saying this is his second term?
Well, he was, I don't know how many years prior, but he's been on there for a while.
Okay. We'll get some fresh blood then.
And
I
he's
know
done a
he's-
really good job.
Yeah.
He has.
Since I've been gone, I mean, he's really on point. He shows up, he makes good comments, and
He's very
has
consistent.
good ideas.
We have a motion and a second for Mark Powers to be appointed to the EDC board. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, 5-0.
I'll mention it again. There's something that somebody needed on the Housing Authority Board. We might give her this list of names, and they can contact them.
That's a great idea.
Good idea. And the next order of business will be consideration of appointments to the library board.
They have recommendations on their memo to you on who they would like you to appoint. This is one of those, you don't have a lot of authority over a library board, you just make the appointments. And it's usually, as in, has been in every library board situation I've been in cities, they just give you names and it's more of a stamp of approval.
And this will be reappointment of 2 of the trustees and a new appointment of 1 candidate to fulfill the remainder of Ms. Lorraine Walker's term.
I'd move to nominate Lori Kreitz, Cleo Jones, and Montika Allen Atkinson to serve the terms on the library board as described.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it, 5-0. Now we'll move into new business. Item A is consideration of options for city property located at 225 West 7th Street.
As requested and in an effort to do our diligence of the evaluation 225 West 7th, we had an evaluation of the damage. We had estimates for roof repairs, and in addition to that, had looked at an option for total renovation of that building, and ultimately, we, being all of us in the City Commission, selected to go with the renovation of 701 North Jefferson for the new municipal court. And then the next question was, and what do we do with the building? It's over there. Do we fix it? Do we find another purpose for it? Or do we demolish it? The question then was raised is to get a formal appraisal involved and recommendations from an appraiser. And as you can see, he did a very thorough report that I didn't put all of it on the agenda, but emailed it to you. And the Simmons Company, with their evaluation, discussed 4 scenarios. Scenario 1 was to renovate the building and invest $176,500 into the building, with then the total appraised value that you would get out of it was approximately $187,500. The second scenario was to market it in an as-is condition, and as we've seen and walked through that building, there's not a lot of value in the building, and they verified that the value in an as-is condition would be approximately $23,000. The scenario 3 was to invest remodeled, the roof repair is $25,000, the remediation at $51,000, and the interior for $54,000, which adds up to $128,000. With then the final appraised value to come out of it is $133,500. And the fourth option to demolish the building and the value of the land is at $48,000. The last question that I had waited I've had this report for over a month, but I needed the last question asked was, what will the insurance company do if we remediate the building? Will they pay for the full remediation, or will they agree to help fund the tear down of the building? Because insurance companies aren't obligated to help fund the tear down of the building. About a week ago, they called, and after we gave them all the information, the remediation report, the roof estimates, this report, and everything, and they took a week to evaluate it, and their determination was that the city would be spending good money on a building that they're not going to get much return out of. So therefore, their recommendation is that they would spend $30,000, which was the low estimate, that we had two estimates on the tear down. They would spend up to the $30,000, the low estimate, could be used out of the NPR risk insurance pool to tear down the building, because they didn't see it as, based on the appraisal and everything, as a good option to fix the building. And so they will help pay for the demolition of the building for $30,000. So that was good news in the sense that insurance companies don't normally do that, but they, because we belong to a risk pool, they are more flexible and they can decide their own rules. They don't have a corporate headquarters telling them what they can do. Their own board and own director can make those decisions. And the decision was, yes, they would help tear down the building. So based on all of that and the evaluation for the asbestos, which determined that there was very, very little asbestos in the building, and the remediation of that was only going to be approximately $1,500 was the estimate. Based on all of that, the recommendation by staff, since the city has no further reuse for the building and the condition of the building is in very poor condition, and that the city would value it more as a parking lot for use as parking spaces, because we lack parking spaces in this area, was to tear down the building and use it for parking spaces. Now, we'd have the $30,000 to tear down the building, but I wouldn't have the money unless we budget it for a future budget for the actual creation of the parking lot. I haven't had an opportunity to discuss this with Mr. McCaffrey, but possibly use millings, possibly use an overlay with an asphalt overlay, use millings for a base and an asphalt overlay, things like that, to be creative about keeping the costs low in the project. But it would be of more value to us. It is by staff's recommendation as a parking lot. With that, I will answer questions as much as I can, and then request that the commission give us a recommendation on what to do with the building.
I had a question. During the August rains that we had last year and the FEMA funding grant money, was there any money that was allowed for that building?
Yeah, the insurance deductible is $5,000, and they gave us a percentage of that based on. At first, they said that they weren't going to give us anything because we possibly were going to tear down the building,
Right.
and they don't invest money in tear downs.
Right.
But instead, the ruling was in the end, since it was going to be some time out for which we would do the project, they decided that they would give us a percentage of it, and so we ended up collecting already $2,500.
Okay.
So basically, that's going to pay for the mold remediation and the inspection for that mold remediation. So, and since we knew we were going to incur those costs regardless, they determined that they would give a percentage of the $5,000. And that's what they did. And they closed it as a project. They didn't want to hold the project open.
Okay, good, thanks.
So that's money has already been received. That's all they would have, the maximum they would have given us is $5,000, because that was the deductible on the insurance policy.
Do we have any estimates of, approximation of what it's going to cost to pave or to make the parking lot?
Not at this time.
Basically, you got a building and it worth nothing.
Yeah.
How much money do you want to put in it?
Yeah, well, you have to remember, that was a Quonset hut, and all the city did to make it a courtroom building or a building was just build fake walls around it. And that's part of the problem in itself. There's
If we were able to sell it, what property taxes could we generate from it?
well, if the highest value is $187,000, it's not going to generate a lot, but I wouldn't know the answer to that without plugging it into my little
Before
computer.
we just throw it away, are we throwing away a
Or-
potential?
Or potential lot that could be sold.
If we can sell it.
Understood. Maybe we
Right.
could consider try to sell it first or not, and then if we can't in 6 months or whatever, then we doze it. Just a thought.
The total cost to renovate it to what the architect considered complete was $187,000?
187.5, yeah.
It's not an architect, it's an appraisal.
That-
Yeah. It ranged from
was it.
128,000 to 175,000, depending on if you're going to do a full roof repair, a partial roof repair, or if, and what you're going to exactly remediate in the building. The remediation that FEMA would have been involved in, and what would have been recommended by the mold remediation, was to tear out 4 feet from the floor up, all of the sheetrock, all of the molding, floor molding, all of the floor, all of the carpet, everything would have to become out. Well, that only partially took care of the problem. We've got interior, there's an actual interior drain that along the edge of the one wall in the middle, between the roof and the roof, that has to be redone. And then there was drop ceiling panels that'll have to be replaced. And then in the one back room, it would have to, where they held prisoners would have to be totally gutted out. And it's not a proper prison hold area anyway, but in order to remediate it, because it was water all the way from the roof all the way down it. So all of that would have to be pulled out and remediated.
You would need
So there was,
got to do a shell, basically.
that's basically what ends up happening.
So if we spend, I guess, I think I'm trying to get where Pat's going. If we spend $187,000 to renovate this building, what are the chances that we'll sell the building and put it back on the tax rolls?
I just say sell it as is. I don't.
Oh, okay.
we don't
You're not
fix it.
talking about
I'm just
fixing it.
saying, we sell it as is, somebody else does whatever they want to it, stays on the tax rolls.
I got you. Okay.
Under that kind of scenario, we just have to be careful on the remediation. They need, if they're going to use that basement at all, it needs to be totally dug up all the way around it
Now,
and sealed. Because, yeah,
Anyway, right,
that's the
so-
worst, that's where most of the water mold issues were what he called the bad mold, the
black mold and all that.
and that stuff that carried stuff that wasn't healthy, was in the basement.
The
And-
walls
and
seep
it-
down there, so they have to dig
The
out.
the walls all seep, so they would be,
Because the roof is bad.
we would have to allow grant easements and stuff for them to do all that. And our parking lot would then get torn up, which would be part of the project. So somebody else to take on the project is going to have to realize that all would have to be done to make that basement usable. And then, because it continues to seep all the time. And right now, the furnace and all the electrical panels are in the basement.
And we already have one building that we're trying to do that with, and we can't get the people to start on it.
Yeah. I mean, I don't have a
Maybe
crystal ball
time.
that I can show you, but.
Maybe time to cut our losses on this one with that much work, and then try to entice somebody to put that much money into it.
It's going to be quite the challenge.
And
I
you
mean,
said it was 48,000, the worth,
sitting as an empty lot, it was appraised at $48,000.
an empty lot.
He's estimating to sell as is, you're going to be lucky to get $23,000
Okay.
because there's a lot that needs to be done in that
Basically,
building.
somebody that was ready to do something and they were looking for that site,
Right.
23,000, and knock it down and do something, it'd be a great deal for them.
Because you remember, also those walls all have holes on the outside walls, all have on this side, have holes all over it. It has to be fixed too. And it's a fake wall. It's a fake wall. It's not the wall that's on the building. It's a separate wall. And as vehicles have hit the wall and people have poked at it, there's one hole that's about like that, but there's all up and down that wall is completely poked through.
It's a drive-through.
Yeah.
And it's not a historic structure either.
Is not historic structure. It's just an old Quonset hut that the city owned the property. They converted into a building for office space use. And then eventually it was remodeled once in the 80s where,
82, the year I was born.
yeah, he remembers the date because it was the year he was born, for court. And we have outgrown it in addition to the mold problem. Does it remind you of another mold problem that you had, Cecil? In another court? The county went through the same thing with their courthouse.
This time it's not pigeon, so.
Yeah, it's not pigeon, same. It's still
Yeah.
it's a health issue, health hazard.
This could be considered shovel-ready land
Oh, yeah.
if we tore it down and had a temporary parking lot put in.
Oh, you could see that about any parking lot that we have, it's shovel-ready land. I mean, it depends what, almost all things for sale at
Oh,
the right price.
If somebody wanted to buy a lot downtown, they would have a place to put up a building, an office building, or a developer would have more chance, in my opinion, a developer would have more of a chance to come in and want to buy that lot empty and put a new building on it as opposed to renovate, is the way I see it.
Wondered if we did the demo, let it sit for 6 months before you make it into a parking lot. That way, if someone's
You got
interested,
a buyer.
At that point, you're either going to move forward with a parking lot or
Well, I-
maybe somebody during
Right.
a period of time.
And I don't have money in this year's budget anyway, so, I mean, you could budget for after, I mean, if you guys are serious about tearing the building down, then then I can have the discussion with Mr. McCaffrey about what costs the parking lot and some creative ways that we could do it at low cost, and then have a number ready for the budget. But we thought this was a decision that needed to be independent of that, and then we can move forward with what you want to do if you want to choose the parking lot.
Are we going to be able to mow it? So it isn't a blight?
Yes, we'll mow it. We'll keep it. We'll mow it.
There's not much there to mow.
No,
No.
we'll knock the weeds down.
Any further discussion?
And I wouldn't suggest we even if you're headed towards a demo, that we don't demo until a few months from now anyway. We're busy with other projects, and this is going to be like this fall. We still have to go through the demolition bid process and getting, for competitive bids, since it's over $10,000. All of that still would have to occur. It's not going to happen like tomorrow.
Recommendation, or at least was the piece I'm looking at, the motion would be to move to demolition. Maybe.
That's
Yeah,
staff's
with the-
recommendation,
Yeah,
yes.
but, I mean, you're right, there's a process going to have to take
Yes,
place.
we
before
still have
get
to go
there.
through the process.
We could go ahead and make that motion and to at least at some point get things moving forward.
Right. We're asking for you to make a decision on what to do with the building so we can move forward with the next step. And that's looking into the costs of a parking lot and budget it for next year, go through the demolition process, go out to bid, all of those things have to occur yet.
Okay, I want to back up, because I thought I had it, but I think I just lost it. Insurance company, $30,000 for demolition. That takes care of the entire building. What do we have to budget into that to equate that 30,000? What's our?
Our match?
We're going
We
to
have
make a parking lot.
To build a parking lot afterwards.
To build a parking lot out, and the $5,000 deductible. There's a deductible that we have to kick in, $5,000, and then they'll pay the 30. They agreed to $30,000.
Okay.
Okay.
Up to 30 or 30,000?
No, they agreed to spend up to $30,000, and so that gives us a little room as far as a budget. Then we already got the $2,500 from FEMA, which will cover the costs of the remediation, the asbestos remediation, because they said the estimate the inspector gave us was $1,500. Well, that'll be covered under the FEMA grant, so we could go ahead and do that at any time. But the bottom line is that I don't have money, and neither did we plan for the air parking lot. And if you decide on demolition tonight, then we'll go ahead to the next step, and that's getting you the cost of a parking lot, and then we can put it off for next year's budget or a year after. It doesn't, I mean, like, building a parking lot is not going to be a high priority to a budget.
Okay, here's my question again. Okay, I mean, I'm getting this part of it. We demolition the building, we don't build a parking lot, we still have a mountain of gravel, dirt out there that we could just fill in the hole if it needs to be filled in, but we don't do anything until we have funding.
Right.
But as it stands right now, we have the money given to us by the insurance company to cover demolition.
Yeah.
We don't make it a parking lot. We've already talked about leaving this
Leaving it
place
vacant. It's a
vacant so
vacant
people
lot.
can see it's available. I don't see where the city has to put in very much, if anything, to this.
No, and not at this point.
Okay.
Not unless you're ready to move forward with the parking lot.
No.
And I wasn't ready to give that recommendation to you unless that's what you're wanting.
No, because we don't want to do the parking lot yet because
Give it
this
some time.
discussion here says somebody might buy it as a vacant lot.
They might.
If it's a parking lot, probably not. So I see us demolishing the building. It's not doing anything. I saw the way water runs in there. That place is nothing but Band-Aids stuck on a sucking chest wound, just waiting to die. We can put all kinds of money into it, but it's a waste of taxpayer money.
It's pretty graphic, Jim.
Well, I'm sure the girls can give you the horror stories of the bats and the
Yeah.
pigeons.
When I went downstairs to the basement, it was bad enough just imagining that on a good dry day. And then you see water just literally run in like a stream, or as I call it, some of the storm water running down the back of my people's yards. That's what it looked like. Water's running in there because it's a downhill facility on the back end side of it. Water has nowhere to go but downhill, and it runs downhill into the courthouse. And that's, you can put sandbags and all kinds of stuff there. It's just a receptacle for water. We'll be wasting around. We have money to demo it. I don't see a problem with taking it down right now.
I'll move to direct city staff to move forward with the demolition of the building at 225 West 7th as discussed.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion?
None here.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Ayes have it, 5-0.
Thank you.
I'd like to
Puts
see us
together stuff.
save the front stone and possibly incorporate that into the new courthouse.
And we're gonna bid it two ways, and that was the part was bid it was just a straight demolition, and the second part is to save the stone, because we don't know what that means in cost. It'll be an added alternative to save the stone on the front there for possible reuse over here. We've already instructed the architect on this to bid it that way, as reusing that stone.
Good.
The question will be is who's going to clean the stone, them or them?
Then we'll do it.
I got a pressure washer.
Because that, when you reuse stone, that's your cost. That's why it costs to reuse stone, is because you have to clean it. You have to take it down and clean it, and that's costly, labor intensive. So we'll bid it two ways on both contracts.
Thank you.
Mike Stevel's retired now.
That
He'd
stone
have
may
four
have come
pressure
out of that
washers.
quarry we
Let me
were talking
volunteer
about
to
earlier.
use.
Next item is consideration of ordinance G 1147, amending the 2013 standard traffic ordinance to make it illegal to use wireless communication devices while driving.
do it? Okay. I didn't bring anything, sorry. Oh, okay. She can do it.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. Although it's not my direct agenda item, I've had an opportunity, I believe this was presented before the commission a couple weeks ago with the instruction that it go back and have review by my office and Ms. Logan. I had an opportunity to review what was originally proposed under this wireless communication device. Had an opportunity to do some edits. There was a couple recommendations. The initial one was a definition section. The definitions that were recommended to be added in there actually presently exist in the STO already. So the addition of those definitions was unnecessary. So I completely removed that section from what was proposed to you originally. The second part went in, there was just some general structuring things that I looked at, as well as I believe there was no penalties section, and kind of to address the question there. We put maximum penalties in. Kansas addresses misdemeanors as levels A, B, and C, which is what the municipal court would have jurisdiction to cover. Level C misdemeanors are punishable by up to $500, up to $50, up to a $500 fine, up to 30 days in jail. Maximum penalties realistic? Absolutely not. It gives the judge discretion if it's a repeated offense, where we don't put that in an ordinance that you guys would see that's kind of stacked. It's like the animal ordinance, animals at large. First offense is this, second offense gets worse, third, fourth, etc. For most misdemeanor offenses, we don't have that in there with a stack. So this range allows the judge, if this person is a repeat offender, if it's your fourth or fifth time with a cell phone, then maybe that $500 fine would be appropriate, or a little jail time to kind of wake you up and tell you to get off that cell phone. So, that's traditionally. The first time will be up to the discretion of the judge. I would assume that we would have something kind of worked out in a reasonable amount. Obviously, court costs for traffic offenses is $116. So at minimum, you'll be looking at $116 plus the fine that's set on top of that. So we probably will look around at because I'm the prosecutor, I will make recommendations to the judge as far as what I feel is appropriate for sentencing. If you're involved in an accident and you're texting while driving or on your phone, then I may feel that a higher fine is more appropriate in those incidents versus where if you're just driving down the road talking. So I think that that'll have to weigh on the factors associated with the violations and that recommendation. So that's why it is a range. That's why we produce a range. In this case, because this isn't a state statute, talking on your cell phone is not a state statute. Texting is. So what we're adding, this adds the talking portion of this. And what we do with those is, because it's not set by state as A, B, or C, I've elected to present to you an unclassified misdemeanor. So basically it stays local. It's a local conviction versus equated to a state conviction. And that's why the ranges are a little bit different. And I apologize, I don't have the ordinance in front of me because I didn't know I was presenting tonight. So I believe, was it 500 and was it 90 days?
30 days.
30. Was it 30? Okay, then, because sometimes we go 90 and 1,000. It just kind of depends on with the unclassified. I tried to stay consistent with what the STO book had as far as if something's unclassified in the STO, this is the recommendation.
Mm-hmm.
Just for folks that haven't seen the ordinance, this does allow for, if you have a proper hands-free.
That's correct. So if a person has the hands-free device, they're allowed, they have the little magnet things. You can stick your phone on the magnet. Mm-hmm. You have your hands-free type device. It allows for that. It also has exceptions for emergencies, talking to emergency personnel. So basically, if you're witnessing somebody driving erratically on the phone or on the road and you're trying to call into 911 to report that, obviously that's an exception in here. It does give exceptions to law enforcement and emergency personnel during the course of their employment or through the course of their employment. So if the officer is driving around talking to his wife or her husband or significant other, that is not acceptable. However, if they're on the phone with another officer, supervisor, what have you, EMS, EMTs trying to get more information on situations, those would be the exceptions. So please don't, if you see an officer or somebody driving around taking pictures, sending it into my office, they do have this would give them an exception through the course of their duties. I believe those were the only major changes, just besides formatting stuff that I cleaned up. So you guys have if the commission has any questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
Exactly why I had you present it.
I have looked at it, it's fine.
Yeah.
That was pretty good off the cuff. You did a great job.
Yeah.
Could you clarify the texting part? You mentioned texting.
Texting is presently in the STO book. This does not cover, STO is our standard traffic ordinance book. The city adopts annually the standard traffic ordinance book, which directs, it's basically the equivalent of all state traffic laws, but it's a book that's produced by the League of Municipalities for municipalities to adopt and incorporate into their ordinances. So in the texting while driving, STO has a prohibition against texting while driving already. So it's not something, this would be additional to.
That's already state law.
Yeah, the texting is already state law, so it's mandatorily illegal everywhere. And I did change the title of this. It was originally, and if you look at your notes, amending 2013 STO to make it whatever. I took that out because annually we adopt a new STO. So if we adopted it that way, then I have to come back and amend this one and vice versa, as well as like the adding a section in here to the STO book. I took that out because again, that STO book changes annually. And so otherwise we may have to come back here every year and change this. So I didn't think it was appropriate. I feel this fits in with the sections that it's at with the 302, with other amendments that we've had to the STO. So that's why I removed those things.
I move to approve ordinance number 1147 as presented.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to approve ordinance number 1147.
Roll call vote.
Commissioner Landis,
Yes.
Commissioner Aska,
Maybe to stop me from doing texting. Yes.
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 Commissioner Sands,
Yes.
Commissioner McAllister. Motion carries 5-0.
And I would assume traditionally it gets published on Saturdays, so this would take effect Sunday morning, just for the general public. Will probably be a little discretionary while things are going on as far as giving warrant. I don't know. I can't tell you what the police department will do, but.
It'd be nice if we could
And we
probably
will order
publicize
the
it.
signs.
And the other thing that has to happen is because this is not really contrary, but in addition to state law, it'll have to be posted on signs at the entrances. I don't know how many of you guys have been to Manhattan with their posted signs on the entrances into the city, but there will have to be some signage posted
Yes.
to allow persons knowing that.
We
I've
put
got
that
mine.
on Channel
Brought
3
the
also.
fireworks. Okay, all right.
Cheryl, can we get that on the cable Channel 3
Yeah, you
also? A
should.
little
Yes,
blurb
we'll
on there.
put a
and
notice.
City website, maybe?
I'm sure the press will do a good job of getting that out there.
As long as they don't text it out there.
Yeah, they text.
It'll be effective the day after publication. So if it's published on Saturday, then it'll go in effect at midnight Sunday.
Signs. We'll probably need to wait till the signs are posted first and then wait and publish the signs.
Which we haven't ordered. I mean, obviously, we haven't ordered anything because we didn't know the vote of the, but we'll order signs. The design has already been based off of what Manhattan does, and so they know what they want to do with the signs, and they'll get them posted and sent out and done.
Probably a month then.
How long does it take you to get the signs, Mr. McCaffrey?
It's going to take us probably a couple of weeks
Yeah.
to get the signs. It'll take
Then
us
you have
at
to get 'em
least
out.
30 days to get them installed.
Yep.
So it'll be after that, then they'll start pulling people over and probably a few warnings first, and then,
Well, we'll do everything we can over the next couple of weeks to educate the public on this.
Good.
I was talking to Kevin tonight about myself and Sheriff Wolf doing in our town, and there's other topics we want to discuss also. And we'll bring it up at that time, plus we'll get with the Daily Union with Mike and stuff and get that out. Make sure we get the information out to everybody, plus making sure that the signs are posted, that it's all in place there to make sure that we get the folks educated.
Probably one by the high school would be a good idea, too. Just a thought.
I don't know if any of you, the rest of you saw it, though. I think this is probably a really good idea. There was a piece on, I think it was CBS Evening News or NBC News just this past weekend contributing some 2,400 deaths of minors in connection with inattentive driving, texting, using cell phones, whatever. There was some evidence they had cameras installed in these kids' cars and they were driving off the road and everything else while they're texting. And, and I'm not going to say, but if we save one life, what's that one life worth if it's your kid? And it's just going to be something I think that's going to take us a while to get used to. We all know when we get over to Manhattan, man, that's one thing you don't do when everybody say, well, how do you enforce that? Well, it's real simple. It's like Ed Klump, the former chief of police of Topeka, said one time at a legislative session. He says, well, Chief, how are you guys going to enforce that? He says, well, if I'm sitting at a stop sign and I look over and I see somebody with their hands over the top of the steering wheel doing this, I know they're texting. In this case, if we look over and we see somebody with that phone up to the rear, that's prima facie to show that they're violating that law, and we'll pull them over and give them a ticket.
Exactly.
So
Good.
it's all about safety. I can't say, but I know that I think we've had at least one fatality in Junction City that I believe was due to cell phone related activity. So I think it's a good thing. I think it's a good thing for all of us to be behind this and to move forward with this, and it's a good idea.
you can equate it to seatbelts. I mean, when the seatbelt laws first came into place, people were very upset and didn't want to do them, and look at the countless number of lives that were saved from people wearing seatbelts.
Even though our most recent click it or ticket event, we ticketed, some 129 people for seatbelt violations, but there is evidence that the city is in 80% compliance with seatbelt. So that's good, and it's reduced deaths, so that's a good thing. So I think this is good.
Thanks, Chief.
Great.
Next item is consideration of G 1145, additions and amendments to Article 4, fireworks.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. You get me again. This one I'm prepared for. It was brought to me
Put you on the spot.
probably, it's been on a couple occasions. One, during the 4th of July season last year, and two, here probably around January at a staff meeting. Some of the needs to clean up, modify, update our fireworks ordinances. I don't know how many have seen the old one, but it's kind of bare bones at best. So going through the new proposed ordinance for the commission this evening, I worked on the first concern we had as a city is the discharge of fireworks on our property, on at the 12th Street Center, in the parking lots, on the streets, the debris that's left over, and the cleanup that takes the city to go back and clean up those areas. So that was the first concern we wanted to address in this, which if you go to letter C under 1, the subsection, or not really subsection, but the paragraph after A and B, basically saying that it's illegal to set off, or given them when they can do it, but telling them that no fireworks may be discharged on any public streets, parks, or other public property. So basically the prohibition on any city property, any of the parks and that. After I sent that to Ms. Logan, she suggested that, hey, you probably should have an exception for the organizations that want to set off fireworks at other times. So with her help, we get into part 2, which talks about the ability for people to apply for waivers. Taking into consideration some of the organizations that do, I came up with the policy limit of $1 million. I know that I believe with Raythort Stadium, they do fireworks out there, and I believe that's the reason I came up with the $1 million policy, was because that's the contract that is set with the organization out there, with their minimum policy. I felt it appropriate to kind of stay consistent with some of the other organizations that we use. That number could obviously be modified by the commission if you so choose. That was just a starting number for me. I believe in Prairie Village it was $5 million. So I changed that to kind of accommodate what we some of our present relationships with other people in the community. So this kind of talks about the process for that. Going back to C1, the issue was raised last year about the definition of a weekend. Our current ordinance says that weekends are Saturday, Sunday by definition. Well, that means we had people shooting off fireworks at midnight on Sundays because they are allowed to by city ordinance. I like to get up and go to work on Monday morning and don't like fireworks at midnight. The suggestion to me was that we revamp the weekend time and we look at a Friday night, Saturday night, where most people, I won't say everybody, but most people don't have to get up and work the next day. So that's my proposal as far as the times are changing, basically having an 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. Sunday through Thursday, with the exception of the 4th of July, and then Friday, Saturday, and the 4th of July from 8 a.m. until midnight. So that was one of the suggested changes as well. In having all parties review this, the fire chief mentioned that, hey, these aerial luminaries have been prohibited in other communities as well, the luminaries that have the open flame in them, and suggested that maybe we incorporate that as well. So that's where you get to letter D, the incorporation of that prohibition as well. And just because I like to keep things consistent, I also added a penalty phase. It's a lot easier to go to an actual penalty in an ordinance than it is to bounce back and forth between different sections and when numbers change. So that's why I went ahead and added a penalty provision to this section as well, that you'll see that in there. And again, keeping with the unclassified misdemeanor, the minimum levels up to 500, up to 30 days.
Will the fire chief see to it that our fireworks stands don't sell luminaries, I assume, as part of his inspection duty?
Yes, sir. That's a state fire marshal, state law on that, so
Okay.
our people do annual inspections and will confiscate and make sure that the retailers are selling
Great.
illegal.
Okay, thank you.
The Parks Department has already pre-ordered signs to post at our entries of our parks to let them know that they won't be allowed, so that they can't claim they wouldn't know, because there'll be signs posted.
I know there have been questions raised, and I believe it wasn't to me directly, but I've heard through the grapevine of issues with like the school districts and things having concerns with their parking lots as well. In anticipation, if the commission had questions about that, I proposed a second draft that I've brought with me this evening, which would include on that subsection I first talked to you about, where it says the subsection 1 does not apply to. I went ahead and added the language or where expressly prohibited by posted signs. So basically, if you would prefer that to be a little bit more specific, which would also entail if the school district chose to post no fireworks to be fired here, we would have the authority under this as well if you wanted to adopt the.
Would that also allow like a private business, like say Walmart, for instance?
Right, the
in
one
their
to post
parking
it
lot,
in
if they
theirs.
posted it would
That
cover
would,
that.
it would. And that I believe it would give us more authority to enforce it there under this ordinance. So like I said, I proactively took that step to create a second option if you chose to go that direction.
As your motion amended as recommended.
You can show them how you reworded it.
And highlight the portion that I added.
The sad part about it is that I know I've been in parking lots where, I mean, people would just clean up. And even sometimes here at Sundown Salute, when I was
They don't
involved
clean
with
up.
that, in the middle of the street, they'll light off a bunch of stuff and just leave all the debris, and it's just ridiculous.
Yeah, it'll take our parks crew all of the next day just to clean up the parks of debris that was left.
And obviously, I can't say this will cure the problem, but at least it gives us some enforceability if violators are caught.
Any further questions?
I would move to approve ordinance G1145 as amended.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to approve the amended ordinance G 1145.
Do a roll call vote. Commissioner Landis?
Yes.
Commissioner Aska?
Yes?
Mayor Ryan?
Yes.
Commissioner Sands?
Yes.
Commissioner McAllister?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Do you want a copy for the one to sign, or do you want me to email you the one to sign? Because these all have highlights I didn't know.
Have him sign one of these and hold on to it until I get a clean version. I'll
You
have
can
him
sign
sign
the
that
last
one later.
page and it's good.
I'm not going to post it for a while anyway, it sounds like.
Right, we need to get it published, though. We do need to get it published so that's in effect.
We're just going to publish
Because-
a summary of it.
Right, this,
Yes,
well,
we published
okay.
a
You can
summary.
sign it
Page
later.
Okay.
Yep.
I was saying, because
So long
4th of
as
July
we have-
coming up, we need to get this,
Tonight, you can go
get
ahead
this
and-
Then
in
I'll
line.
highlight it probably.
Thank you, Commission.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's one sentence to add to your
Yep.
original text.
Item D is consideration of case number SUP 05-01-14, request of Pierre Roberg for a special use permit to allow sales of light-duty trailers on property zoned general residential at 1325 Thompson Drive.
Mayor, Commissioners, this case arose out of a violation issue that was submitted to the property owner concerning the fact that they were conducting a trailer sales activity in a residential area, which is beyond a permitted home occupation. And subsequently, as part of the communication said, you have the option of either ceasing or pursuing zoning approval, which we did amend the regulations to allow a special use permit rather than rezone the property commercial, which probably would have been tough to do. Mr. Roberge approached the city and did submit the application. It did go through the Planning Commission at their public hearing on May 8th. You have both the minutes, all the supporting documentation, as well as the draft ordinance that identifies the conditions. The recommendation was unanimous to recommend approval. One thing that is still pending out there that the applicant is asking for, and I presume most of you have at least had the opportunity to look at the property and see the situation. This is not just really flat ground off the road. It's that side of Thompson Drive at that particular location, the grade up on above where the activity occurs is 15, 20 feet higher than the grade of the road, or whatever that is. After Mr. Roberge acquired the property to tax sale in 2009, they formally did put a drive entrance off of Thompson Drive. Before that, they'd been just jumping the curb. But, and there is a drive up there, but it's not paved. The ordinance within the city regulations do say any drive entrances or areas used for parking of vehicles has to be paved. That's the ordinance that's been in effect at least before '08. I think '06 is when that occurred. Mr. Roberge is asking for a waiver of that standard. I think you've got the written request and part of the attachments you received of what he's asking to do. He asked that of staff, he asked that of the Planning Commission, and we told them we don't have that authority. Only the governing body does. One of the other issues that was a big concern to him was the fact that we make reference in our recommendation that if he is required by state law to be a licensed vehicle dealer, then he has to obviously, as a condition of the zoning approval, maintain that license to do that with the state. And there is a lot of confusion as to whether or not the state's going to make him be licensed or not. At one point, he came in the office and said, unequivocally, they said yes. Then he came back and said, well, now it's a maybe, they don't know. And they haven't resolved the issue. And I think my experience with the state, particularly the Department of Revenue on this kind of stuff, is until you formally apply, they're not going to respond. And the reason it's an issue is that under state law, that's been this way for a long, long time, in order for someone to obtain a vehicle dealer's license, the local zoning authorities have to sign off that the location is properly zoned. And so it was in a catch-22. I can't sign off on the zoning until the zoning would say, yes, you could do that. He can't make application and get it even considered by the revenue until I can sign off on it. So it's kind of a catch-22. We said, and if you read the staff report, you'll note, this is probably about as good a use as you're going to see for that ground. It was platted out in the 60s as a series of residential lots along Thompson Drive. Unless somebody takes down the hill, it's probably not going to be built houses through there. It's sat vacant for years. Mr. Roberge acquired it at a tax sale because the previous owner just quit paying taxes on it. So there's a whole bunch of reasons as to why nothing else is going to happen. This works. He makes this work. We're supportive of the request. The only condition that's kind of outstanding is the question of the paving question. And the only comment I would add on that, as this commission may recall, we've had two instances, well, actually three since I've been here, when the paving requirements have been waived. The last two have been because we had car repair businesses that the Autocraft Body Repair and Sergio's, both of them in the neighborhood. Autocraft is on Chestnut, but the lot they were talking about was facing First Street. Sergio's faces Second Street. And in that instance, you did allow them to not pave with asphalt or concrete, but they were able to use asphalt millings. The other exception that was granted was the mini storage facility down in the right along 77 Highway, where the lot backs over and is actually encumbered by an easement where Kansas Gas Service has a high-pressure gas line. And the proposal from the applicant was to use part of that ground for access around the buildings. They weren't building a building on the easement, they were building right to the line. And the gas company said, we'll allow you to gravel that and drive on it, but you're not going to pave over it. And so the commission granted that exception. Those are the three that I'm familiar with where those exceptions have been granted. This is, to my knowledge, the first time you've had someone that comes in with a new business that's just saying, I don't want to pave anything. True. The other side of the coin is this is not a normal flat piece of property. You've got some interesting conditions here. So it's an issue that this commission needs to decide what you want to do. If the decision is made to grant a waiver, then perhaps we should revisit the entire paving statute and try to provide a little more flexibility or a little more guidance in there, other than just open the door to where everybody's going to be walking in the door saying, please waive it, because I don't want to have to pay to pave it. So, and I didn't intend to rhyme there, but I did. So.
I have a question. Is he asking you to waive like the driveway and the lot, or just?
Well, he's asking for a waiver of all of it, and you'd have to go out and see the situation, because from the edge of the curb, it's probably close to a 30 or more degree angle up carved into the hill to get up on top, and then it's a pretty good sized area up there on top.
Yeah, on top it is.
So,
And then it's not level by any means.
No.
Once you get up on top. And then I guess I'm probably more concerned about with stormwater runoff, with the more asphalt paving that you do.
you just increase the runoff.
You've increased the runoff down onto Thompson Drive, and there could be maybe a portion of that hillside, is what it looks like to me, that could be paved, but I just don't think it serves the city any good to have all that water running off that hillside down on the Thompson Drive.
Well, and you'll note, if you note in one of the conditions, we did talk about that. The assumption was you pave it according to the ordinance standards, but if you do, then you got to have some discussion about managing that so that you don't cause drainage problems. That's an issue that we're aware of.
That'd be pretty expensive for that big of an area.
Yes.
The one thing that I saw is, it's not just mud, it's not just grass. There's been quite a few tons of rock brought in there too. It's fortified, the ground's fortified with rock. So
Oh, yes. No, I'm
It may
aware.
not be asphalt, it may not be cinders, but he's put some tons of rock down in there, and you actually don't get your feet muddy when you're walking around this parking lot because he's put so much rock down.
Well, and I don't think it was an issue per se of the fact you're dragging mud out all the
Yeah.
time. It's more the fact that the ordinance doesn't make any distinction.
Exactly.
It says asphalt or concrete, period. There's no,
It also doesn't make a distinction about that. It's not like, let's say like a traditional parking lot where people are pulling in and out
Exactly.
to go to look at stuff. It's
not in the
it's
middle of-
interesting. It's an interesting piece of property.
Not in the middle of
to
downtown either.
say the least. And
And it's chained, it's locked up.
It's not in the middle of a downtown area where you want the part, dressed up and cleaned up and looking good. It's different. It's just a unique.
It'll have low traffic volume.
Sounds like we need some latitude in the
Almost no
ordinance.
traffic.
well, that would be, yeah, if the commission is inclined to say, yes, we'll grant the exception here, I would strongly urge that you give us direction to revisit the ordinance and find out if we could create some other latitude built in so that we don't get to this kind of situation all the time. Because, the two instances with the auto repair places, they're surfacing their lots, they just weren't using asphalt or concrete, it was the millings. And it could be a combination of, better gravel. The objective is to not create a muddy situation where you're dragging dirt out, and where there is at least some control, or where you're not seeing stuff wash out. But as you're well aware, we're not dealing in a community where every lot is relatively flat adjacent to the street, and so you've got some unusual situations that come in. And there may be very well that, irrespective of what we do, is still going to be occasionally where we're going to have to come back to get an additional exception granted through this board, but that's fine. It's just, we seem to be the series, and what we don't want to do is open the door, because in all honesty, virtually every home up there, the driveways coming off the streets are all paved.
Yeah.
But there's not many of them, well, there's none on this stretch of Thompson Drive because it's just so severely different, so.
So your recommendation would be to go back and rewrite the ordinance with latitude for special circumstance?
I think, well, no, the recommendation is to act on this request. If you're inclined to let them act on the, and use the gravel condition or whatever else we need to do for that, that's step one. Step two is also to revisit the ordinance, yes.
Okay.
I don't want to tie up the the zoning case waiting on that.
Okay.
If possible.
Any further questions?
I move that the recommendation of the Metropolitan Planning Commission be accepted and that ordinance number S 3127, granting a special use permit to permit the sale of small utility trailers at 1325 Thompson Drive, Junction City, Kansas, be approved, subject to the conditions listed therein, with approval of the gravel surface as it is.
Okay.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the zoning case allowing the use of the gravel.
Roll call vote.
And-
Hernandez?
Yes.
Commissioner Ascott?
Yes.
Mayor Ryan?
Yes.
Commissioner Sands?
Yes.
Commissioner McAllister?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Now, do we need to make a motion to have,
I don't know you need a
Well-
motion. If you'll just direct us to do that, we'll work on that and bring that back
I
to
would
us.
direct you to
Yeah.
do that to allow,
That'd be a good idea.
provide some latitude.
And bring it back to us, please.
Yes, we will. Well, we'd have to because we can't do it yet.
And our next item will be consideration and approval of a special event permit for the operation of a farmer's market on Thursdays at Geary Community Hospital for 2014.
Mayor and Commissioners, received the application for, received a call from the hospital concerning their desire to establish a farmer's market at the hospital. As noted in the cover memo, the hospital is zoned residential. And the special event is, we'll get into that later.
Where our roads are paved though, right? Our parking lots are paved.
Yes. Yeah.
In the parking lots.
Clarify.
Just to clarify.
But part of the special event permitting process is to accommodate the occasional commercial activity that would occur in otherwise residential zones. That's the whole theory behind what it starts with. We don't do special events for activities in Heritage Park. It's zone commercial. Some of the other park facilities and locations are zone commercial. You don't have to do this. But here it's cleanly that situation. Under the special event ordinance, this is an activity that's beyond administrative approval. It takes the governing body to do that, so that's why we're here. As you see in the application and the other supporting documentation, the intent is the area that's kind of the northern end of the north end of the parking lot is the area they're going to carve off where the vendors would be established. All the concerns that we have under the ordinance that we run the trap lines with, the law enforcement, the fire department, code enforcement, sanitation concerns, all those are adequately met with respect to what they're doing. I know that Harold and Nikki are here if you've got any questions specifically about the content of what's going on, but as it says in their application, they intend to start, theoretically, the first one would be this Thursday, and then the activities would be on Thursdays from 4 to 7 through the season. And their application said the end of September. I put in there that it would at least go into perhaps October because you just don't know. But the idea would be to grant them the authority to do that. Obviously, for the sake of anybody concerned, this does not conflict with the farmers market activity that happens downtown on Saturdays. And according to what we heard from the hospital representatives, they are working and have already communicated with those folks. And there are no conflicts or concerns that we are aware of at this point. As you can see in the application, the rationale behind what they're doing, and in my communications with Nikki and Harold, is that this is all part of the continued wellness outreach activities and encouraging people to create a little healthier lifestyle and fresh fruits and vegetables and other things. So we're recommending approval, and if you've got questions, why, you've got folks here that can answer it better than I
I was
can.
just wondering if, was this idea brought up by Dr. Landis since he has extra tomatoes?
Not gonna bring him to the commission meeting, that's for sure.
I was just wondering, yeah.
One thing that I would recommend, your hours are kind of late in the day. There's people who work the day shift that are done by 3:30 or 4 o'clock. I would think you'd want to start it earlier, even around lunchtime where people go in the cafeteria. Oh, they see it going on out there. Let's go buy some stuff, put it in a bag in my locker, and I'll take it home after work. Just a thought. I mean, I think it's a great idea, terrific. But I think your hours need to be a little more employee-friendly for the day shift.
Well, the idea, excuse me, yes, I'm sorry. Nikki actually met with a lot of the farmers.
So it's her fault.
And
Okay.
we actually, we actually reached out to them to find out what was going to be good for them.
Okay.
Since it is a different night, Manhattan has theirs on Wednesdays and Saturdays. We have the one Saturday here. And we've actually recruited people from both areas 4 hours. So we were trying to find a night that was not a conflict, and then we just reached out to them to make sure that the hours are appropriate for them.
Okay. I just think your turnout might be better if you had a little earlier in the day. Just a thought, something to think
This
about.
is a start.
Yeah.
So, anyway.
And this is going to be in the parking lot, right?
Correct, correct.
The way the newspaper article read, it sounded like it might be on the lawn down close to Ash Street, and I thought, surely they're not going to have traffic stopping out there on the,
No, if you notice our parking lot, it's kind of, the north end is catty corner there from St. Mary's and Ash, and it's going to be all the way up there. We've already got plans to use cones to block it off during the day and put signage out there and line the vendors up. We've got an initial plan for a low number of farmers until we build a reputation. And we've already planned out the expansion of that area further into our parking lot if it's the success that we hope it will be.
And just as an FYI, there's a second farmer's market. It's Wednesday evenings, I believe, at the Geary County Historical Society.
There's also has a lot of other items they sell there. We're restricting ours to food products. So we're not allowing crafts. We're not allowing flowers, not allowing live animals. So we actually have a registration process where they have to register with us and list the items that they're going to sell.
Sounds good. Same farmers from downtown?
Some of them.
Okay, good. Thank you. I need fresh produce on the way home.
Any other?
Mr. Year, I have a question for you, because, I mean, this is from June 5th to October 30th, 2014. So is it yearly you'll come in and request this, or?
That was what we were advised, that it would have to be a yearly
See how it goes
permit.
this year and go from there.
Yeah.
Okay.
And July 5th, I mean, June 5th was set up just because it's after tonight.
any other questions?
None here. I move to approve the special event permit for Geary County Hospital to conduct a farmer's market on Thursday from June 5th to October 30th, 2014, as requested.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the special event permit. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say aye. Vote carries 5-0.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I would note that we will not put time restrictions within the contents of the permit, so that if they do modify their hours, then that's going to be covered. We're more concerned about the time. So.
Thank you, Commissioners.
The next item will be consideration of case Z040114, request of Central National Bank to rezone from multiple family residential to special commercial, the property at the southeast corner of 7th and Webster.
Mayor, Commissioners, this is the rezoning of the vacant lot that sits at that property, as noted in the staff report in the minutes. That is under contract to be acquired by Dillon's, and their intention is to convert that to additional parking for the Dillon's facility. Even though early communications with Dillon's representatives indicated their intent was to primarily make this staff, you can't guarantee that. And it's just that they're additional parking. And part of the delay we ran into is that if you've been by there and are aware, part of that lot is already used as parking for the bank because they've got some lots off the alley. There is no site plan or anything like that that's reviewed at this stage because this is just a straight rezoning. It does take commercial zoning for this to be classified as a parking lot facility or pub. So that's why we're doing this. This would not be allowed in the multifamily district. The only concern or objections or questions that we had noted in the minutes is that the individual who owns the property immediately to the east was concerned about drainage and also about security and screening. Screening is required by the ordinance, so they'll have to put up a privacy fence or some kind of screening on the east side where they butt up to that house. And the city's ordinances and standards and requirements for approval on the parking lot and the drainage off there is going to make sure that we don't have drainage issues there as well. But that's handled at
After hearing that information, were they satisfied?
Absolutely. Yep. There were Dillon's representatives at the Planning Commission meeting, and they heard all those concerns and did acknowledge that, yep, those would be taken into account.
At that intersection at Fourth and Webster, there is no four-way stop. It's only a two-way.
At Seventh and Webster, yes, it's a two-way
Sorry,
stop.
Seventh and Webster.
Yeah, it's two-way.
Shouldn't that be a four-way stop if you're gonna have people crossing the street there and have it striped and everything?
That's an issue that we'll have to deal with respect to changing traffic pattern. There's under the threshold requirements on those kinds of things, you've got to evaluate conditions there in and of itself. No, there's not. I drive through that every day, and there's,
Well, zip
you
right
stop,
along through
you
there.
stop east-west on 7th, but there's not north and south on Webster. We'll tell you that the plans that have been submitted so far, there will not be any driveway entrances off of Webster. Access will come in off the alley like it does now. The access off of 7th Street will be moved as far to the east as possible. So there will not be a drive coming out close to the intersection. They're working on multiple different layouts of how to make that all work in there. So, but as far as whether or not it will trigger a need to convert to a four-way stop at 7th and Webster, there's a process to go through that, and I'm sure Greg can
It's not that busy.
add to that as need be.
Well, it'll be a pedestrian crossing there, correct?
Well, there's not now.
I mean, wouldn't there be if there was a parking lot and we encouraged people to park there? Greg?
Could be.
Let me just comment on that. What we can do is we'll look at, it's referred to as a traffic warrant analysis. It's pretty simple to address. But basically, we'll look at as far as the traffic volumes at both of those legs, or excuse me, all four of the legs. But then we'd also want to try to get a feel of what's going on pedestrian crossing as far as in that area. So that way we'd be able to make a determination with whether indeed there should be a four-way stop at that location. We always want to make sure that we meet the warrants or the minimum warrants. We don't want to be putting out regulatory signage and it doesn't meet those warrants, because then we find ourselves in I want to call it a catch-22, where indeed you're putting up traffic control means, be it stop signs, yield signs, and they really don't follow as far as the criteria for that. So we surely can take a look at that if they do proceed with that parking lot.
And you haven't seen plans yet.
No, we have
So
not.
when you
No,
see
we
the
have not.
plans, when you make recommendations for crossings.
Right. What we'd do is we'd grab some traffic counts in that area. I don't believe we have any as far as in that location, because the traffic volumes are pretty minimal at those two streets. I don't even recall if we have those as far as on our biannual KDOT as far as counts that we receive from them. So we'd have to as far as generate those if they go forward with that parking lot. And we could do that in-house with the staff as far as in engineering.
Okay.
I would think it would be minimal usage over there unless it was a holiday or, it's just the zoo over there or something.
I kind of see that as employee parking.
And that's what I assumed it would be mostly employees.
Indication we received was that the employees would be encouraged to park there so that the ones out along 6th Street will remain open, which is where they all park now, out right along 6th. But again,
Still concerned.
we don't have any control over that.
It's a great idea for them, because they're definitely out of parking.
Any further questions?
None here.
What's the will of the commission?
I move to make a recommendation of the Metropolitan Planning Commission be accepted, and that ordinance number S3126, an ordinance granting a rezoning from RM, multiple family residential district, to CSP, special commercial district, of certain property located in the 500 block of West 7th Street, Junction City, Kansas, be approved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve ordinance number S3126.
Do a roll call. Commissioner Landis?
Yes.
Commissioner Aska?
Yes.
Mayor Ryan?
Yes.
Commissioner Sands?
Yes.
Commissioner McAllister?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you.
The next item is consideration and approval of award of bid of filters and various equipment for Public Works.
Yes, Mayor and City Commission, these next three items, essentially, they all go together. We're packaging them as our fleet operation as far as equipment that typically we secure over $10,000 worth of those kind of products, either from one sole vendor or that particular product itself. We procure more than $10,000 of it. in a given fiscal year. So the reason that these went out for competitive bid is for us to allow us to be in compliance with the city's fiscal policy, but also we want to make sure indeed that we're getting good pricing as far as on these items. We did outline this to the city back when we assumed the public works operation, that we had several items that we were going to be going out for competitive bid. This happens to be just one of those. It's an amount not to exceed. So there are dollars budgeted within the 4 major public works funds for these filters, and other as far as items related to filters within the 4 major public works budgets. If our intent is to use no more than these, and what we have done is we delayed this whole process in order to allow us to get some history through our Manager Plus program, which is our fleet software program, as well as to get some history as far as on our overall needs within the public works operations. With that, we direct solicited to some of the vendors that Viola Water had used in the past, the city had used in the past, advertised within the Daily Union, posted it on the city's website, had a bid opening through the city's clerk's office, and our recommendation is to you to award a bid to O'Reilly Auto for the filters as far as for the 2014 as far as budget. And with that, I'd be happy to try to maybe answer any questions. There is a summary as far as of the bid as far as that was received. Unfortunately, it was only one bid, but again, we did direct solicit the other three vendors. We also gave you, because we wanted to have you get a perspective of the volume that we're talking about, and this is probably maybe good that this kind of stuff is coming before you now, so when we get into the budget sessions, we start talking that we need filters, fuels, and oils, and all that other good stuff. You'll get a good perspective of knowing the kind of products as far as that we have to use in order to keep the 70-plus pieces of public works equipment on the road. So that I'd be happy to maybe answer any questions you might have.
How big of an inventory are you guys having?
We keep a minimal stock as far as on hand.
Minimal.
Generally, as far as we'll keep anywhere from 3 to 4 as far as of a particular filter on hand. So indeed, we're not waiting for the filter to be delivered. So indeed, when the vehicle or piece of equipment needs to be serviced, we do not have a lot of storage over at the public works facilities. Any of you that have been over there, we have a crib that's above the fleet garage area on the second level that does store as far as some of the filters and materials that are used by the 2 mechanics. We do have a small room that's off to the side of the fleet shop that we are able to store. So the problem becomes with us is to be able to store the material on site. We just don't have the room within the Public Works Center. So minimal is anywhere from 2 to 3. Sometimes we'll keep on hand half a dozen of different products, depending on the nature of the use and how frequently it's used. Bulk materials, and I know we'll get into that, we buy our fluids and the like in bulk quantities. We buy them in 55-gallon drums more often. So, but items such as these filters, we keep minimal on hand.
I understand that you're ordering a dozen of most every filter. Is that for multiple vehicles?
Correct. Correct. The intent is...
Going to have 12 on the shelf.
No, and the intent is not to use... Right now, we're in, I want to call it rotating cycles for vehicles. So right now, we have some vehicles that are due for, say, oil changes or fluid changes and alike. And so this is an amount not to exceed. We had to get ourselves tied down to a quantity to make sure that we could have a competitive, comparable bid, and we're comparing apples to apples of everyone that does bid the product. So that's why you see indeed a dozen or 24 of these. The likelihood is, let's just say that we only use 8 of these in a given fiscal year. Well, you know what? We just don't need the other 4. Mm-hmm. But in the following year, we probably got vehicles that are coming in right at the beginning of that, call it next fiscal cycle. We might find ourselves not using 12, but maybe using 14. Okay, it really depends as far as on the cycle of those vehicles. And again, we've got all vehicles are staggered throughout their preventive maintenance within the service fleet. for that reason. We just can't, we can't have them all come in at once. We stagger them throughout the fiscal year.
That's the right way to do maintenance.
That's good to see the bids go to some local vendors, too.
Mr. McCaffrey, I have one question. Looking at the 4 vendors you went to, or vendors, did you also consider the AutoZone right across the parking lot from O'Reilly's?
All that we did as far as is, we direct solicit as far as the vendors that Viola Water had prior contracts with, and then we publicly advertised it in the Daily Union, put it on the city's website. We did not reach out to, are there half a dozen in the city? Are there, another maybe half a dozen in the county, or are there, within a certain mile radius?
In town's good.
I think what we were trying to do is say, let's have a public bid and get this as far as out in a public sense, as far as bidding the materials that are needed.
Okay, good deal. And I'm glad you're keeping the stockage low at the Public Works. We don't want to keep a whole bunch of stuff. It goes bad or it gets lost or damaged.
And we don't either.
Great
We don't
idea.
either.
Thank you.
There is a new program on the market that a company will come in with, it looks like a vending machine, and for product that you use a lot of or throughout the year, it goes in the vending machine, and you don't have the inventory at all until you pull it out of the machine.
That's the right idea.
Those programs, the unfortunate part is they're not local programs. The stock doesn't come locally. It's a national company that runs those programs. But if you are concerned about inventory control, there are other ways to do it.
If they want to move to Junction City, we'll
Yeah.
give them business.
Yeah, no, they're a traveling company. They stock it based on a truckload. They come in and stock.
I think I want to note as well is the reason we do keep minimal stock, maybe I can't really speak all what Viola Water kept on hand. We want to be able to make sure that when equipment does come in or does need service, we're not waiting for parts or materials to come on hand. We need to get that equipment back on the road, get it operating, because we've got individuals that are waiting to use that piece of equipment for different activities. And so it's not like we've got multiple types of piece of equipment sitting around. As soon as it's ready for service, we want to be able to get it in and get it out.
You're replicating services that are done on large scale in multiple places to include the military and other government facilities is exactly the way to do it. Good call.
Thank you.
I move to approve the award of bid to purchase the city's annual fleet operations filters from O'Reilly Auto, Junction City, Kansas, for the amount not to exceed $35,127.12 as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the award of bid to O'Reilly's. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, say aye. Votes in favor, 5-0.
Thank you.
The next item is consideration and approval of award of bid of tires and various equipment for Public Works.
Yes, Mayor and City Commission. This item is for the allotment of tires and rims that are typically used as far as within the Public Works operation on an annual basis. We likewise direct solicited vendors as far as that were used prior by Viola Water, as well as some that our fleet mechanics were familiar with. We also advertised this in the Daily Union, put it on the city's website, held a public bid opening. We've given you a bid tabulation where we received 2 bids for as far as these rims and tires. The low bid was from T.O. Haas. They are a local vendor. We gave you as far as a summary of those typically as far as types of rims and tires that are used within Public Works. Again, we do not keep a significant amount of stock on hand of these tires themselves, again, because we do not have the room over at the Public Works facility, as well as our intent is to only use what indeed we need for a particular fiscal year. So this is an amount, again, not to exceed. I guess I would like to note that since we have taken over the Public Works operation and we did assume quite a bit of that equipment, It is very old equipment, so I would fully anticipate the likelihood of us using this allotment is probably fairly good, that will take place as far as before the end of the fiscal year. Particularly as far as when you get into, I call it the middle area, which is the mud and snow type as far as tires on some of our 5-yard trucks and 1-ton dumps. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions on this item.
Any questions?
I just have a concern that we would buy 40 wheels all at once instead of off-the-shelf, real-time need. It seems to me that we're replacing all the 22.5-inch hub wheels on every vehicle we have if we're ordering 40 wheels.
Let me clarify what we're doing. We did a competitive bid on the need for the entire fiscal year in order to follow the fiscal policy. Should we procure tires more than $10,000 of, say, tire or tires themselves from a particular vendor, we're required to have sealed competitive bids. So we're not looking to acquire 40 tires like all at once. Would we acquire 40 tires over a fiscal year? Absolutely. Absolutely. That's a very good likelihood that we could be procuring, say, 4 tires at a time or 8 tires at a time, and they would come in again as an allotment as those tires are worn out on the particular pieces of equipment in Public Works. So the likelihood of us acquiring, say, 40 tires over a fiscal year of a particular type, that's a very good likelihood given the numbers of pieces of equipment that we have and the age of that equipment, and then I guess I want to say the conditions of the tires that are on those pieces of equipment now.
I think you're asking about.
And I agree with that. I just have a question on ordering that many wheels.
You wouldn't run 40 wheels in 1 year.
You mean as far as you're referring to as rims?
Yes, that's what it says.
What that says.
Right. We could very well have, again, what we were trying to do was put ourselves so that we're comparing apples to apples as far as when we did the competitive bid. And again, this is an amount not to exceed. So do I think the likelihood of us getting 40 rims? Probably not, okay? But I can't, I really couldn't tell you as far as between now and December 31st, that total number, other than what we did ask our staff to do, was to take and assess as far as the equipment came in and they did service over the last year and a half, take a true look as far as at the condition of the tires, the rims, the overall conditions of the piece of equipment, input that information into the Manager Plus, which is our fleet software program that we're using to help track what's going on with our equipment, what's going on with materials and alike.
But that's still saying you want 40 rims.
Could we conceivably use 30 rims? We might use 30 rims. We might use 20 rims.
But if you're running that many rims, y'all need some new drivers.
Right. That's where I was going to go. We need driver training if we run that many rims. All the time I was at the firehouse, I saw one wheel ruined, and that guy went to driving school.
I think what we want to maybe convey to you is we're trying to get a competitive bid on a consistent quantity from a vendor.
But
Is the
a
likelihood that
consistent
we would
quantity of a
use
vendor
40
over a period of
40
time,
rims?
40 of a
Probably
year.
not. Probably not. Is the likelihood that we'd use 6? I don't know that. I mean, if I could tell you that we're only going to use 8 rims, I wouldn't be standing here.
I'd be a lot more comfortable if I was looking at
$4,500.
at 6 rims instead of 20 or 40.
Right.
Pick a number. If you like 5, if you like 10,
Yeah.
pick it and only authorize it up to that on
Right.
on the rims. I would
This
tend to.
doesn't even, does this mean we're buying them, or we buy them if we
No,
need to?
you
We
buy
buy them as
you
we need them. This is an amount not to exceed.
Okay.
That was the intent.
You'll be keeping track of the number of rims that are beyond repair.
But I can assure you that we're not going to go on out, and I cannot emphasize this enough. We are not going to just haphazardly go on out and buy rims and tires when indeed our needs are so great in Public Works right now. We are very cautious on any time we buy any kind of product within that operation.
But if it makes
So,
you feel more comfortable
yeah.
and you only want to approve 5, then just approve 5 on the rims and approve the rest. If it makes any of you more comfortable.
More comfortable, 4 each.
Yes.
Yes, there
That's a
you
nice
go.
number.
I mean, I understand you're getting a competitive bid and you're not going to use, chances of you using 40 rims in a single fiscal year is very
Pretty
remote.
remote. You got 75 pieces of equipment.
I understand that.
Yeah.
So if we're not going to do then let's narrow that down to a more reasonable amount, I'm thinking.
Right. Again, I think our intent was to try to compare apples to apples. I wish we had better history
Tires.
to present to you, but unfortunately, we don't.
Oh, that's a good number. Ian?
He's not buying them. He's just saying if he had to.
Yeah, but I guess I don't like the fact you approve for 36,000, whether you do it or don't. Then what happens to, if you only buy one rim, we've got $4,000 allotted to that, and so where's that money gonna be spent? You know what I'm saying?
Right. I see that.
And I'd hate to tie money up here if somebody else needed it elsewhere.
I guess maybe I suggest this, and we don't have a problem doing this. If you want to take this bid or any other bid that we give you and cut it in half, just note that we would like the opportunity that as we run low on that particular bid, we'd want to be able to come back to you and say, look, there is money budgeted within these 4 budgets. In other words, this dollar amount is below what we have budgeted within those combined 4 budgets. If we need to come back to you at a later date, say August, September, we'd like that ability then maybe to do that. I think what we're wanting to do staff-wise is adhere to the fiscal policy, which says basically that if we procure more than $10,000 from a single sole source vendor, we have to go out for competitive bids and we have to have the city commission's approval in order to procure that product or material. And that's all we're asking for. And we basically, when Jerry Vernon was the city manager, we had that in abeyance, and unfortunately, Mrs. Beatty was not privy to that, and I guess I want to say took exception to it, not knowing about it, and brought it to my attention and said, hey, when are you going out for competitive bid? You're not following the fiscal policy. And I was going, no, we are, because we are getting ready to go out for bid for a lot of things in Public Works. Our problem in Public Works is we didn't have the history. We didn't have the history to know, and we don't even have the history even today. I mean, you know, we're running on less than about a year and a half of history as far as within that operation. Until you have that comfort level of, say, your police and fire, you have a pretty good idea how many tires, how many rims you go through in a given year. I wish I had that information to you, you know, because we'd probably be coming to you in a different arena. But I think today what we're wanting to do is get your approval so we follow the fiscal policy and be able to allow us to continue to move forward with the operation. And know that our intent, if we can avoid spending as far as this $35,000 on these and be able to use that for other items within the different public works operations, the assurance you have from us is we absolutely want to do that, because right now we feel that there are many other line items that we're hamstrung, and yeah, we're searching for dollars, you know. So if we don't need to buy 40 rims and we only end up buying, say, 12 for the fiscal year, where does that money come from? It is not tied up for other departments to use. It's in the public works. We are going to likely use it. Now, if one said, Greg, where do you think you're probably going to use it? Joint crack sealing material this fall. I mean, we're very short as far as on that. I mean, we really exceeded as far as, I guess I want to say, our limit when you turn around and say, hey, you're going to be having a lot of pothole activity. Yeah, we are. You know? And anywhere we can grab dollars to offset some of the line items that are shortfalls, this would be one of them.
So with that rationale, then I wonder how much of this is inflated.
You mean as far as inflated
If that's
on the
your-
competitive
if that's
bid?
your rationale, that if we don't buy 10 rims, then we can move this money somewhere else. So You know, you got 40 rims here, and you don't buy 40, but then you'll just move the money somewhere else.
No, what we would do is we would have a line item, we would have a line item to you that would be more accurate the next budget year, to be able to say to you, look, we only needed
Next
for.
budget, I'm talking about right now.
I know that. I know that. And right now, I wish that when we put that budget together, that we would have had the history that all of us would have liked, and turn around and say, hey, Greg, how many 55 gallons of antifreeze are you going to use to run the operation?
But wouldn't your mechanic now know how many tires he really needs on what vehicles? Specifically, what vehicles and what tires are needed?
I think he has a general as far as idea based on looking at as far as through all the equipment and doing service on it. I think the opinion is probably going to be that many of those pieces of equipment need new tires. There probably are several of them that need rims because of the age of the equipment and the use and care of the equipment over the years. Much of our equipment that we're working with in Public Works is 10 to 15 years old.
Because, oh, excuse me.
I just got to go here. I've had hundreds and thousands of trucks assigned to me, and doggone it, I don't remember changing that many wheels. I see what you're trying to do. You're trying to build up, but we're also here to make sure we're allocating you enough money, but we've inflated wheels. I don't know when I've ever changed a wheel. We change tires, we break tires, we blow out tires, but wheels and hubs are very, very, very seldom broken, bent. Look, the mayor even said they replaced one in his tenure of 30 years. That number is just so inflated. I see two of each, and then you come back to us. That would save us $4,156.48. You inflated that thing. And Commissioner McAllister, thank you so much, but daggone it, that's money can be allocated. This is the budget process getting ready to come up, and that's exactly what we got to look out for. If you go through those two wheels, I tell you what, I'd be down there to help you change them. But wheels don't get old. We have old Deuce and Halves from 1950 that are still running on the same wheels. They don't break. They rust. We scrape them down. We paint them, but doggone it, they don't break. That's 60 years on the same truck.
I guess let me say this. If we erred in the quantities and you don't like the quantities that were presented, I'll take that blame. I guess what I would ask the commission is we're wanting to move forward with this operation. The fiscal policy requires us to have your approval for expenditures greater than $10,000.
Exactly.
If the commission is agreeable to this, cut every one of those quantities by a quarter. In other words, just give us a quarter of that. And that's still, as you tally up all of that, we are probably with this sole vendor going to be paying them more than $10,000. We want to be able to keep this operation going. We want to be able to follow the fiscal policy, and that's what our intent was. It was not to turn around and inflate these. I really wish I had that tied down quantity for you. If I could turn around and tell you in a given fiscal year we're going to use 38 tires, I can tell you right now I wouldn't be standing here doing this. Okay, I'd probably be in Vegas, and all of you could be calling me, and I'd maybe loan you some money because I'd be all over it, But I'm not, I guess what we're trying to do is, when we put this together, we wanted to compare apples to apples.
We got it.
In an amount not to exceed. Okay.
You're good.
Greg, I was just gonna suggest that, and you made the suggestion, changing these quantities to a quarter of what they are. Maybe 50% is what they are. We don't know what the history is, so we're reaching out there, not knowing how many and what the quantities are. So I would think that we could lower that in half.
Start small.
And then we would still have to do the approval, as you've mentioned, because of the fiscal responsibility. But then once we get to the point where we know a little more, then you can come back to the commission and take the next bite.
And that was the suggestion that I had.
That would work.
I think that's a good suggestion to rework those numbers to a more palatable number so that you, the city, the commission, and all of the residents know that we're looking at it very closely, and then once we have better idea and better knowledge, we can move forward.
Sure.
Absolutely, and I think that's our intent. Our intent is not to inflate these quantities, come with you with a large, we're trying to, as we present this to vendors, we're trying to say, you know what, we need you all to compete on a level playing field. Is the number 10, on the first line item, is the number 10, is the number 20, like we have it, is the number 30? I do know that if I put the quantity as 20, I know that all the vendors are going to bid on 20, and that if we know indeed that surely in this operation we don't want to use any more than we have to, let's just say we end up using 12, what's the likelihood of us coming back to you then next year and saying, you know what, we used 12 last year, the likelihood of us using 12 this year is probably pretty good, because now we got a little bit more history than what we had before. So I think that's truly our intent. It is not to turn around and inflate these.
Basically, you're asking for a flat number, and then you'll work it with just the stuff within. Is that what we're at? Okay, if that's the case, then I move to approve the awarded bid for the purchase of the annual fleet operations tire and rims from T.O. Haas, Junction City, for an amount not to exceed $30,000.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the purchase from T.O. Haas not to exceed $30,000. All in favor, say aye.
I have
Aye.
further discussion.
Oh, any further discussion? Excuse me.
We lowered that by motion by $9,000. 7,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it was 36,928.
There's no direction, just a flat number.
Just a flat number,
Right.
not to exceed. Okay.
Because that's what the previous one was, not to exceed amount, even though.
Well, I don't really know what the difference is between 39,000 and
30 and 36.
yeah, 36,000 and 30,000. The $7,000 difference. If it's not to exceed, why change the number at all?
Which, the dollar amount?
Yeah, I'm not.
Just gave a number. I'm not going to.
Not quantities, just a
I wasn't
total
going to go
number.
through myself and try to figure out whether we need 10, 20 of that. Here's the amount. Because it sounds like that's what they're going to do anyway, is go through as we need to buy, whether we need to buy 5 rims or 1, they're going to just not, as long as they don't exceed originally the 36,920. So I'm just saying, here, we'll just give you a flat amount. I'm assuming we're still going to be purchasing these items, is where I'm coming from. But do you need?
Those line items,
Right.
And I guess.
I didn't make my motion needed to say that.
No, I don't think you need the motion to say that. I thought that was probably a pretty generous number.
I'm a generous guy.
Okay. That's all I have.
I think the operation is still learning what their needs are year to year. And I think Mr. McCaffrey's just trying to give himself some room just in case. So he doesn't have to keep coming back to us for that. And he is getting a little lower number because he's asking in this bid for more items. That's how they base their bid, correct? The more items that you potentially could buy, the lower the numbers, the bid's going to be, correct?
Generally, that's true.
Any other discussion? We have a motion and a second to approve $30,000 for purchases from T.O. Haas. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
It failed 2-3. Is there another motion?
Yeah, I didn't catch you voted in favor of that. If you tell me who's in favor, okay.
Cecil,
Okay, thank you.
So I would expect by this time next year that we would have a better handle on what our yearly needs are.
We should. I would think that we're going to have a little bit more understanding of the equipment and been able to go through, as far as I want to say, 2 fleet cycles. So I think truly we'll have that.
And you would anticipate this being at the beginning of the year rather than in the middle?
Right.
Yes.
So that's why I would allow a little more latitude until we have a finite history on our operations, what our needs are year to year. So I'm willing to honor this with the understanding that by this time next year that we would have more accurate numbers.
And my thought, the reason why I disapproved was I thought these quantities were a guess of what we may need. And until we know those numbers, those annual numbers, until we have really good numbers, we should start lower and then come back to the commission when we need more material, more. I think this is 50% not inflated, but 50% over what we need. And I don't want the perception is that 50% that we don't spend this year, well, we'll just spend it somewhere else. Because it was approved, if it was approved at the 36.9 and we only spend 20,000, well, we've got $17,000 we can play with somewhere else. So I would rather you come back to the commission and say, we spent our 20,000, now we have 17,000 that we need to do somewhere else, and this is what it is.
Right, and again, note, I mean, we adhere very strictly to that fiscal policy. So as you say, $17,000, we don't have the authority to be able to do that somewhere else.
Absolutely.
You know, we have the authority up to $10,000 with the city manager's approval, as far as to be able to do that. So there are a lot of limitations that are placed on us as we move forward.
Right.
You know,
And I fully understand.
I'm agreeable to, you know what, we're agreeable to, and I know the motion just failed with $30,000. I mean, I'm here to tell you, I'm agreeable for you allowing us to approve it for $12,000 and just know that in 3-4 months, we probably will be back to you again asking for additional dollars because we need to be able to keep the operations going. And we'd hope you would honor that as far as in that sense.
Sure.
If we approve this bid and then we've got to procure other quotes, because again, or additional bids, because again, we're getting a single vendor that we're procuring it for more than $10,000.
Here's the problem I have is that, you know, you need to get better about then I guess when you put items up here like this, which is like a rim, which to me is an item that you just don't break, and you're putting 40 in, it makes me wonder what you're doing. That's all I'm saying. I'm done.
They're all, even if you put it down to the 12,000, and then if you ask, if Greg and staff came back and said that we'd like to stay with the same vendor at the same price, if you'll honor those, that's always an option too, because you control those policies and what we do and don't do with it. And if the vendors will continue to honor that price for the rest of the year, even if it exceeds the 12,000, all you have to do is come back and say, I need another 12,000, I believe, but for year end, and Mr. Haas has agreed to honor the original quotes, that's another option that you can simply come back to. The basis of what he's doing is the proper procedure, but I don't know, Greg realizes that if he submits the purchase order for $36,000, that ties that money up, locks it for the rest of the year. It won't be spent on anything else but that purchase order, because it pulls that money out and it sets it aside. It'll come off his budget.
So are we comfortable with 12 or 15,000, or what are we comfortable with?
I'm comfortable with 12, not to exceed 12,000, and then if we need to come back, then we'll come back and revisit it again. But do we need to rewrite this bid tabulation? Does it need to reflect 12,000, or can we just say not to exceed 12,000 to T.O. Haas?
It would be about a third of all of the quantity numbers, you know? I mean,
That would be a third.
36,000 and 12, but you have the 40 rims, and so you might want to weigh it differently. I don't know.
How about if you word it that you're awarding the bid to T.O. Haas based on the bids received, but you're only authorizing him to spend $12,000 at this point?
Okay.
and then he can always come back and say, I spent my 12.
Right.
We have the
Then you come
bid,
back from
we have the bid
Right.
at 36, I've got 12.
As needed.
Yeah.
There you
I
go.
think that's-
That's a good compromise.
Sure.
Everybody wins. It's awarded to Teal Haas by formal bid up to the 36,000. You simply asked him to come back when he's done with the 12, give us an update and a report and say, okay, I'm ready to spend another 12. Are you guys okay with it? This is what we did with the first 12. Is that a good compromise?
That would work for me.
It's fine.
Okay, let me take a shot at this then. What she said.
I'll second that.
Need that in the form of the.
No, the motion would
I gotta
be-
write something down over here.
The motion would be, we're awarding bid to Teal Haas as the 36,000 with the limit of the department spending the first 12,000 to come back for the city commission for the authorization for more
Anything,
money on the purchase
anything
order.
above 12,000
Comes
has to
back
get
to
additional approval.
approval.
Additional approval.
For expenditure. That way he can give you a report, you've got your 12,000 to get your initial
Sure,
startup
sure.
going, and that's a good compromise.
Do you want it at 36,000 or the 36, that amount?
The
that's
awarded
on the
bid
sheet?
goes to the 36,928.
Yeah, okay.
That way you're not violating the policy. At the same time, you're getting what all of you, I hear you asking.
So moved.
That would be a second. All right.
We have a motion and a second to approve the purchase from Teal Haas of $36,928.18 worth of product. And when expenditures reach $12,000, we will receive an update from Mr. McGaffrey for additional purchases needed. All in favor, or any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, say nay. The ayes have it, 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Thank you.
Now, if you're in the
I'm
audience,
fine.
now if you're in, if there, item I is actually lubricants now.
Where's that?
The-
I is consideration of award of bid for fleet operation supplies and materials, Department of Public Works, Universal Lubricants, Kansas City, Kansas.
Amended the budget to include that.
When you're out of town and get back late, you get the amended budget agenda.
Mayor and City Commission, what this item is for the oils and fluids that are used within the fleet operation to, again, keep the various public works pieces of equipment operational. We did a very similar process, direct solicited, also had a competitive bid, sealed competitive bid through the city clerk's office. We've given you a summary as far as of the individuals that we received bids from. We received 2 bids. I'd like to point out that Universal has been the supplier of these kind of products for the city for several years, at least since I've been here, and I've had heard even longer when Viola Water ran the public works operation. We gave you a summary as far as of what we had competitively bid and gave you a tally as far as of if indeed we were to utilize all of these quantities. And again, these quantities, my understanding in talking to the lead mechanic, Jeff Lewis, these are typical quantities that are used during a fiscal year. So these quantities are a little bit more, have a little bit more detail, a little bit more understanding of what is used within the various major 4 funds or operations within Public Works. What we're looking for you this evening is, again, to award the bid as far as to Universal in the amount as indicated within the report. And if you have any questions regarding this one, again, I'd be happy to try to answer them.
I have one question for you. Are we doing 4 services, 2 quarters, 1 semi, and an annual? Is that what we're doing with our equipment?
It depends on the pieces of equipment, and it depends on the dollars that we are budgeted. I will say, for example, the sanitation trucks, and this came up last budget year. I think it's going to come up again this year. We budget to change out those sanitation trucks once a month, okay? The dollars that were budgeted last year, though, only allowed us to have dollars available to change those sanitation trucks out every 2 months, okay? What does that equate to? That equates to you changing out your own personal car every 15 to 20,000 miles. And the only thing I have to say is, how long will your car last if you only changed it every 15 to 20,000? So we try to work within the budget means that we're within, okay? And do the best we can to keep the equipment operating. These are the quantities that are needed as far as on all the pieces of equipment, as far as that are utilized within Public Works. And so again, we're looking for, and I think as we get more history through this Manager Plus and be able to track better what's going on with the pieces of equipment, and I think as we change out some of this equipment, we have changed out some of it. I think we're going to see that some of the replacement parts and maybe some of the services that are required of these pieces of equipment are different. So we'll be able to report to you more detail during the budget process as well as during the bidding process, you know, as we go on up for bid, because we're not looking to bid out any more than what we need.
Exactly. On those trucks like that, though, those pieces of equipment like those are changed on the hourly count. Those wouldn't be, because they run so continuously. So they're done on the hourly, not on the day or quarterly.
Or the miles, they're done on the hours of
Done on the
run,
hours of
right? And right
operation.
now, the sanitation trucks, they're running between 40 and 45 hours a week.
Exactly.
Continuous.
Okay. I'm good with that. Thank you. It sounds like you need it. Do you have enough to do those trucks, to keep our trucks running? So we can do them
With these quantities, that's the intent, correct?
I'm
Correct.
good with that.
Basically, I want to say that the software that we use, it basically, through the manufacturer warranty, will kick out when indeed we should be doing service on a particular piece of equipment. So anytime it comes into the shop, we automatically load in what we've done, and it's going to trigger us when we need to start doing service on that particular piece of equipment.
Okay, I'm good with that. Thank you.
Is this for this fiscal year or next fiscal year?
This is for this fiscal year,
Ending?
December 31st.
Okay.
And again, our intent in the future is to start coming before you with these bids on numerous public works items. We'd like to be able to come to you sometime in December, first part of January in the future. We think that we're going to have a little bit more history and be able to have, as far as these, a little bit more standardized on being able to go on out for bid.
Well, you'll have to put them on the January meetings because you can't award them in December for January.
Right, right. Even so, I think our intent is to get them out early.
Yeah, yes.
There's a significant volume, as you've noticed. I believe this is, the one you're looking at this evening, I believe, is number 12. And we have 4 more coming to you, I believe, next month that are primarily fall and winter operations through streets.
Any further questions?
None here.
What is the will of the commission?
I would move to approve the award of bid for the city's annual fleet operations fluids and oils from Universal Lubricants of Kansas City, Kansas, in the amount not to exceed $43,103.42.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the purchase of Universal Lubricants. All in favor? Oh, any further discussion?
None here.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. The ayes have it, 5-0.
Thank you.
Next. There was an item that I'd meant to bring up, and I didn't, so we really can't act on it, except for the fact that it's less than $8,000, so without our approval, it can be done.
Yes, and I did.
Greg, are you listening to me?
Greg?
Greg.
Greg, remember I called you this afternoon about this project, to visit with Commissioner Ryan. He'll describe it.
This afternoon, I had a conversation with Commissioner Hicks and Dennis Cox down at the county shop.
Correct.
And they were going to overlay their portion of 207, which is the street that runs
East Street?
East Street,
Right.
from the four-way stop down to the Cracker Barrel down to the roundabout.
Right.
And they offered, if the city would pay for the materials, which will run $8,000, that the county will go ahead and overlay that for us, the city's portion. So it's all done in one pour. the counties and the cities is all done. That way it'll maintain the street looking the same for the entire length.
Right. I had a conversation with Dennis Cox, the county's public works director, a couple of weeks ago concerning this, and he said that that's exactly what they were looking at doing. What I did share with him was we would likely be in favor as far as of moving forward with that once he had some better numbers. What I did share with him, though, is in our opinion and based on our pavement management system that we've looked at, again, this is a 2-inch asphalt overlay, and it's basically going to give you that. It's going to give you basically a maintenance overlay on that road. The problem that we see with that road is that road is it's not designed to handle the traffic that currently goes down there, which is predominantly to the transfer station, to and from. So it's heavy truck traffic. And right now, it is an asphalt road that has, I want to say, a stone base that is not in the best condition. We don't even have cores on that road. I do know that we've put a skim asphalt layer out in front of the hotel area and in front of the Cracker Barrel, just to basically continue to preserve that road section. I think the money that they want to put down there, I think it's going to be well spent. I mean, it surely is going to buy us additional time on that road. But again, the long-term plan on that road, and I shared this with Dennis, is that our opinion is that entire road needs to be a concrete section and not an asphalt section. So I think it's good money spent. We have dollars available, because if we were not to do that, we would just continue to do the many segments of 9th Street, which is the next street that is rated within our pavement management system to be done as a mill and overlay.
Right.
So if we were to do this East Street, we would just pull back the $8,000 or $10,000 that the county would be expending on doing East Street and do that much less once we get the final quantities from Bear Construction on our milling and overlaying. We'll just pull back what we would hope to do on 9th Street. Does that make sense? In other words, we have a segment that we would like to cover this year. We're waiting on to getting those revised quantities, bids from them.
Right.
We'd just pull back the amount that we would do on 9th Street and carry that into 2015.
Mr. McCaffrey will have to come back to you for the change order approval anyway. I believe it'd be over
Correct.
25. Yeah, it'd
Correct.
be over
It will.
25. So he'd have to come back to you anyway for that. But between, if you're okay with what Commissioner Ryan is talking about, the rest of you commissioners, then that's what Greg would be given direction to.
You know, we don't have the money in our budget, and we won't have for the next couple of years, for foreseeable immediate future.
To do the road that with the cross section? No.
No.
Change. So I think that when we have the opportunity to overlay that much of the road with a 2-inch overlay for the price of $8,000, I think we better jump on it when we have the opportunity.
Yeah, I don't know what they have for the cost per ton on that, but I just, from my experience and the length we're talking about, that's a very good price.
Yeah.
That's a very good price to be able to do that. And he's probably talking a 2-inch overlay.
That is what he's
Is what they're talking about. And absolutely, that is going to give us as far as a better wearing course as far as along that segment of street.
It'll smooth it out for quite a while.
And they've already done the work to prepare the shoulders before they do the overlay. They already have that work done.
What they'll typically do is they'll do the overlay, and then they'll come back in and dress the shoulders back in. They'll
Yeah.
feather them back in.
They dressed it out, and then they'll overlay it and dress it back in.
Yep. That's typically the way they'll handle it as far as an overlay.
So since it's not an agenda item, could we just get a consensus of the city commission that that's okay if we spend the $8,000 for this purpose? Anybody have a problem with that, I guess?
No.
Street needs repair.
It's a good cooperative effort between the city and the county to get the common goal accomplished.
At a reasonable rate.
Yes.
I think that gives you what you need.
Sure. All right, I'll pass that on to Mr. Cox.
Thank you.
Let him know.
And the last item is consideration to schedule work sessions for the land bank and stormwater management plan.
Two things
July.
have come up since we last talked, and that was the stormwater is ready to, we met with AMEC, and the stormwater is ready to present their findings on their study and rate recommendations. And they said that July 8th was a date it opened. It's actually a Monday night, not a Tuesday night. But July 8th was available for their staff. And at the city-county commission meeting, the issue was brought up that we needed to probably have a meeting with our attorney to further discuss with Katie and Mr. Urout, and the 8th and 9th, I think, was available in your schedule.
July 8th is a Tuesday. night.
That's a Tuesday night, okay. I can't see it from here.
2013 calendar.
Probably because that goes
It
on
is
to
Tuesday night.
2013.
Anyway.
So you can update that calendar.
I
Put a
know.
calendar right
That's
there.
why I'm reading her
Sad
off.
part,
Okay.
sad part, those are free.
Anyway, so I had previously asked Katie and Amex staff, and they were all agreeable to the 8th. If you are agreeable to the 8th, that is a week that we don't regularly meet.
Right.
So if it works in your calendars, that we would schedule that.
And what time do you want?
Suggested that that Amex says they would need at least the hour and a half and an hour and a half with Katie, so it'd be another 6 to 9 type meeting where you're going to an intense conversation on stormwater and then another intense conversation with Ms. Logan, give her the first half of the meeting because she's got to travel back, and then the AMAC, they'll be staying overnight if they come for that night. That will just put them on the second half of the meeting.
Okay.
That works?
Works for me.
Works for me, it's on the schedule. There.
Works? Okay. Will you let AMAC know if that's going to work? Okay, so we'll schedule you need a motion on that for scheduling a work session, please?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
None.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed say nay.
Thank you.
Ayes have it 5-0. Commissioner comments?
Oh.
Go first started. Commissioner Landis.
I'm going to have a little article coming out in the paper on Saturday discussing some of the things we reviewed at our last meeting regarding annexation, and kind of set a few things straight about what the expectations were. All we were really looking at the last meeting was to provide a set of information to even consider annexation, because we don't really have any data. We have a map of eligible properties, but we don't know anything about what costs are and what's involved and things like that. And that's really all it was about. So I'm just going to kind of elaborate on some of that in the paper on Saturday. That's what I've asked them to put it in. So that's about all I have. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Commissioner Eska.
Couple of things, and I've noticed this, and somebody had sent an email reference, like if you put mattresses, chairs, what's the city policy? How long does that stuff sit there before?
We're actually in the process of reviewing that right now to finalize and to make it more clear to the public. But if you put any large items out there now, such as large chairs, mattresses out there now, the current policy is that you really shouldn't be putting anything out that doesn't fit in a 4x4 area that can't be easily picked up by one person, because we only have one person on the trucks. If they have to make a second route, a second trip back to your location for a large chair, a couch, a mattress, anything that's large, they're going to charge you the $75. Correct me if I'm wrong, Greg. That's kind of what the policy is now. We're going to clarify that in an additional clarification. And once we make that clarification with you and get everybody on the same page so that the staff agrees with what the city commission direction is, and we've got an updated ordinance, we're going to do that all as part of our update on our sanitary solid waste ordinance and do it all at once. So by the probably the first meeting in July, we'll have an ordinance to you for both. Get that addressed so that people have a clear understanding, then we'll advertise it and list it. But basically, right now, we're not charging for extra bags and extra everything. The goal, I believe, in the future will be anything within a 4x4 area next to your can, as long as it's not heavy, as long as it's not a hazardous waste, and as long as it's not really bulky, that we would pick it up.
So technically, right now, if you're going to put a couch out there, you need to call.
Probably.
Have it picked up, okay.
And
I
that'll
think
cost-
I think people do think I just put it out there in the city, they'll take
Right.
it. And I have noticed, and like just recently got some inquiry about that, but.
And
I
it will
have
cost you
noticed-
extra, because then we've got to make a second trip out, and we've got to pick that up. And then the minimum charge right now is $75. Then the other thing that people need to be aware of, currently, we could charge more than that, is 75 plus the transfer station fee. Right now, we have been just assessing the $75. And that's why there's been, I think, some concern by the public, because even internally, we weren't sure exactly who was doing what when. And so now we're going to get it all together and clarification, bring it to you for a final approval, and then advertise and let people specifically know and post it and get that all organized and clarified.
Do the drivers make note that somebody set something out or should they make note and maybe have the?
There's a work order system. Somebody calls in and says, I have an extra large piece that I need to have
No,
picked
I'm not
up.
talking about that part, but like, I mean, in reality, some people just don't know that.
Yeah.
So we set it out there, and my question is, will the drivers make note that, hey, there's a couch that's been sitting here, now this is going on the second week, and then maybe the office call those people and say, hey, that's been sitting there, they're not gonna pick it up, so.
I'm going to suggest the driver will put a door hanger or something on the door.
I think that would be
Yeah,
appropriate.
would you like a special pickup?
Yeah, would you like a
Call
special
us,
pickup?
Call at this number, and we'll.
I'd
It sits
like
there-
to see that, because.
If it sits there for very long, we blight it. It gets turned in as a blight.
Well, to be a little more proactive.
Yeah, proactively, we'll, door hangers or,
Currently, right now, we run 4 trucks on each route. The drivers all have a cell phone, and so they'll call that in. If they do indeed see a large item, they'll call that in. And likewise, as far as they'll verify through the cartograph work director system, is indeed, had it already been called in for a special pickup, okay? If not, we do have that. We have door hangers right now that we will leave as far as at that home, letting them know that for the pickup this item, okay, it will be a special pickup. If they go around the following week and that item is still there and it's not been picked up, yeah, unfortunately, it becomes a blight and it gets turned over to code
I
enforcement.
might suggest y'all remind the drivers of that, because I don't think that's happening, because.
Okay.
I know there's a couple of, in my area, that have been sitting there for a while, and so.
well,
I'm just-
but remember, the blight officer job
I-
takes time.
I'm not talking about that part, I'm just saying on the other part,
Sure.
that getting that notification out there.
We'll do that.
Sure, that's all noted, thank you.
We'll do all that.
The other-
But we are reviewing it.
Okay. The other thing I want to bring up, just recently, there's a lady I worked with for a number of years, and she had a bout with cancer, and she lost that bout just recently, and she will be missed, and I just wanted to send her family that my thoughts and prayers are with them. I'm just going to share a quick story. Her and I, her name is Joyce House, and we would go out of our way to scare each other, and I think she was up on me, because she scared me a few times pretty good, but I got her back a few times, but she's going to be missed. She was a good worker and a good person, and it's just sad that how quickly cancer won that battle there with her. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Commissioner Sands.
Couple things. Relay for Life, great event this past weekend, along with the Junction City Police Department, the Community Block Party. 2 great events. You could almost attend one and then attend the other, because if you went to the Junction City Block Party, I was severely under the weather. I should not have traveled, I guess, but sometimes you heal better in your own bed than you do in a hotel somewhere far from here. So I wasn't able to attend, but I did get out to drive, because I told them I would try my best to support, but I wasn't going to make anybody sick. So kudos to the Relay for Life, the young folks, and everyone that got out there and supported that event. Miss Glenda Johnson, hats off for her, but she said this is going to be her last year, so I hope it's not. But if there's anyone who wants to put their hat in the ring for the relay, it's a great event. It's for those events like the bouts with cancer. This week, we met the Community Image Community Image and Awareness. We're going to probably go back into that, but we want to make sure we have a focus that suggests and works directly with the city. I think before we were disjointed, Mr. David Yearout was there with me, and I think we have a better focus than what we did before. Before, I think we were shooting a shotgun in the dark and hoping to hit something. And we hit sometimes, but we really kind of spun our wheels. We started off with a focus, so if you have an interest in being in the community image, that's awareness, I guess, community image and awareness. CIA, but it's not that CIA that I'm familiar, most of us are familiar with. A gentleman came up to me and he had a little bit of upsetness going on with him. I'll just say that. He was perturbed. And he says, how do I know when I need a permit? And I said, the way it was told to me, if you're going to do something and it's above your waist or above your chest, contact the city. When in doubt, contact the city. If you don't know for sure, pick up the phone, 238-3103. I have a question. But don't do something and say later that I did not know. But if it's above the waist or above the chest, yes, and it's on your property, yes, call. It's a good idea. And I won't mention that one because that one's one I've written you about. I also want to make you aware that the commission now has passed the ordinance. Be looking for it about texting and driving with that cell phone. If you're not sure, I got a 1927 car. If you have a radio in it, they got a Bluetooth for it. It costs about $60. Go to any of the cell phone carriers. It clips right onto your visor. It's Bluetooths your phone in, so if you say, I only have an AM radio, I don't think it works on AM, but it will work on FM. So get out there, take care of yourself, and quit driving with that cell phone stuck on your ears. I'm tired of dodging you.
Amen.
The JCPD, again, I talked about the community unit. They'll be in the park again. They do a movie every month. The next one is June the 13th, which is the night before the Juneteenth. Juneteenth is June the 14th, and we hope to kick that off at 11 o'clock with the opening proclamation, and we'll run that Juneteenth, June the 14th in Heritage Park from roughly 11 to about 6 o'clock at night. Food, bouncy houses, demonstrations, singing. Some young soldiers are coming out to show they have talent, and this Friday night we might pick up some more because Friday night at the VFW they're having a talent search. So if you have some talent, contact the VFW, let them know you want to participate. I think it costs $10, maybe $5 to come in and see, but it may be a comedy show. It may not start out that way, but once you see some of the people's skills, it may be comedy or it may be very entertaining. So, Mr. Mayor, that's everything I have. Thank you all for being here, and I'm glad to be back.
Thank you, Commissioner Sands.
Just
Thank you all for covering. Oh, Commissioner McAllister.
Vice Mayor.
Vice Mayor. I'm really not trying to.
No, that's quite all right, Mayor. I have nothing to discuss. Go ahead with your plan.
Dangerfield.
No need.
Sorry, my brother.
That's all right.
Oh, now you're family.
Yeah.
He's the older brother, I think.
My brother treated me much like that. If you have nothing.
No, I have nothing.
The only thing I had was I visited with Dennis Cox today.
Yeah.
They're about 90% finished with spraying of noxious weeds. And he said that they've gotten this far without having to clear any of those lots. He said, quite frankly, he said it would have taken heavy equipment to move the stuff around on a few of the lots. And he said with backpacks, they could just walk in and spray because they don't spray the whole lot anyway. They spray the weed itself.
We do the first 8 feet is all.
And he said they're almost finished and it's going well.
Good.
And that was all I had. So, Ms. Beatty.
I don't have anything in general, just really intensely getting the budgets done. We hope to have them printed by Friday, and at the latest, it'll be Saturday, Sunday. So we'll be knocking on your door with a hand delivery for all the budget information, so that we can begin our workshops next on the 12th.
Bring mine.
You what?
Bring mine to the ballpark.
Out to the ballpark, okay. And reminder that the airport is having their national plane on the 7th.
Yes,
This week coming up. Great event for Junction City. That's all I have.
And Brigade Baseball,
And baseball.
starting
Baseball.
That starts the same
Starts
weekend, next weekend.
Friday night.
Yep, Friday
And the
night.
governor's run in Heritage Park with the Cox
Saturday,
Brothers
yeah.
being there. I forgot about that.
This is a big, busy weekend.
It's going to be a very busy weekend. So.
Anybody says they're bored this weekend, I don't know what to tell them. There's tons of different activities, a wide variety of stuff.
And either at low cost or no cost. So there will be plenty of things to do this weekend in Junction City. And I will be traveling with the chief of police. Our chief of police is receiving an award Saturday night for the top police chief in the state of Kansas this year.
All right.
Congrats, Chief.
Here, right here in River City. Way to go.
Don't get carried away now.
Take it out of the wheel budget.
Pretty interest you in some ribs.
Ms. Logan, did you have anything?
I don't.
Tyler?
No. No.
How about the state famous chief?
No, and I think someone mentioned the governor's rally Saturday.
Yes. Yeah.
Starts at 10 o'clock, goes till 6. The governor will be here around noon, and there will be food and beverages all day long at the park. So I want to remind everybody that.
Thanks, Chief.
We will be escorting a parade of motorcyclists from Heritage Park to Fort Riley at 1 o'clock. So if anybody wants to watch that, the governor will be part of that.
Did you bring them by way of Rather's?
Well, that would be nice.
Yeah, that's it. Set up barricades.
Is that open?
Anything else?
Is that open to anyone to ride, or?
Yes, absolutely.
I got a bicycle.
Then you just need to know that they have to use the proper PPE.
Okay.
Very nomenclature of.
Okay.
Protective, personal protective equipment.
Yes.
They're gonna go on post.
You have to have a reflective vest on post, correct?
Right.
And long sleeve shirts.
Yeah.
Helmet.
Everything.
And helmet.
Helmets and everything. So,
Boots, no tennis shoes.
That'll be a good deal. Thanks, Chief.
no, I don't have anything else, sir. Thank you.
Greg?
I just wanted to note this item regarding our street maintenance program that'll be starting up, and I think it'll be underway before we meet again, the city commission, but we will have some information on the city's website. We'll get it out to the media. We did finalize some traffic control plans with respects to the work that's going to be undertaken on Jackson Street, and there will be intermittent closures as far as along be it the northbound 2 lanes or the southbound 2 lanes, as we move forward on replacing those different flags of concrete over the next several months. There will be signage posted as far as throughout that, but people can expect delays if they normally travel that area. We will keep, as far as traffic, open as best as we're able to, call it north and south, all the way along there. But the side streets, there will be some side streets that will not permit as far as through traffic. So I just want to caution people to be aware of that in the next several months, we're going to have a lot of construction activity going on in Junction City here. So, all right.
Great.
Mr. Gurman?
Nothing, sir.
Chief?
Yes, sir.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Ayes have it.